Have you ever worried that you might be the cool kid? You wear the latest fashions on top of all the trends. Or have you ever worried you were too much in the mainstream? Always so generic, more normal than your friends. Well, we've devised a test to put to rest your fears. There's no need to panic if you lend us your ears. Tonight you can't sleep easy after all that you've heard. Cause if you like the show, then you're probably a nerd. Oh, Canon, it's Canon, it's all. Tyler, Kyle, and Boris. So Canon, it's Canon, it's all in Canon.
Yes, that's right. We are the It's Canon podcast, and we are back for season 3.
They tried to keep us down.
But the man can't keep us down.
Can't keep us down.
Never keep us down. That is right. We are the It's Canon podcast. I am your host. I am Boris, and as always, I am joined by Tyler.
Hey!
Yeah, it feels awesome being back. It feels great finally being able to talk all things, everything.
I feel like we should have like a video release alongside this, and it's like that time in like the 80s movie where we all did this and we were tired and went on to other things, and then it's time, we all come back. And I don't know, we find Kyle has been in that closet recording audio. He's gone pale, got a beard, he has to shave it.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a pile of DC comics. He has totally read all of them. We got Boris has been jetting around. He's in a suit. He has to get off the plane. It's like, it's time. He reaches into the briefcase and pulls out a microphone. And then they find me, and I've been on a farm upstate. I'm chopping wood.
Yes. And then someone blows a horn, and then we all convene.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, thank you, everyone, for listening. As you know, we are the It's Canon podcast, and we are launching season 3. It's sort of a facelift / makeover / we have nothing better to do with our time.
It's totally not a reboot.
No, it's not a reboot. It's a revival.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems to be like the term of the year. Revival this, revival that.
Totally not a reboot. Term of the year.
Exactly. So, a lot of people may be wondering what's been going on, what have we been up to? Well, we'll give you all of the updates throughout the show. We'll talk about the format changes. We will talk about the host changes. We will talk about everything that people actually care about and some things that you probably do not care about, aka our personal lives. So I guess we can start with talking about sort of the show and sort of what's been going on. So I think our last official episode went to the interwebs around November. And long story short, really, real life took over. I was super busy with work. Our hosting provider took the site down for quite a few weeks, longer than they expected to. Within that time, we had to renew, and there was a lot of questions for me. How much work are we putting into the site? For those people who don't know, maintaining a site, especially with the size of the database that we had, gets pretty pricey. So it was one of those things that Tyler and I were chatting about for quite a while, about sort of rebranding the site, moving away not from comics in the sense that we will still be talking about comics, but we wanted to expand what we were talking about. So we had all these ideas, and really we just needed to sit down and get our ducks in a row, so to speak. So time just went on and on and on, and weeks and weeks and weeks. And then, I started getting that urge again to come back and chat all things comic and all things geek and all things pop culture. And really, it just, one day it's just like, do you want to do this again? Let's just change it up, make it fun again. Maintaining the site at the level that it was at was a lot of work. And for us, this is our side gig. This is sort of what I always did to keep myself sane, to be happy, to do, just to do for fun. And when it felt like it became a job, I needed to sort of slow down, take a step back. But, I do love making this show. I know that we have some pretty dedicated listeners who constantly were asking, where are you guys? Are you guys coming back? And my answer was, yes, but I don't know when.
Yes, but.
Yeah, exactly. And here we are, I want this show to be fun. So at least for the next little while, we are going to be mainly a podcast, and we are going to be expanding our conversations from just comic books to everything pop culture, geek culture. So we will be talking about films, we will be talking about books, we will be talking about games, we'll be talking about everything under the sun, anything that you, the listener, wants to listen to. This show, as much as it is for us, it's for you as well. So we want to hear your feedback. We want to know what do you want us to talk about. For the next few weeks, we have some episodes queued, but after that, it's all wide open. If there's something in particular that's happening that you want us to cover, that you want us to chat about, let us know, and we will do our best to make it happen. We'll do our research. I don't mind doing that, but it's I just want to expand and really get the show back up at it. Mainly, as much as it was for me, it is for our listeners.
Yeah. And as you may have noticed, we were already doing the drift way back when, just because pop culture is not, it is even less comics. You can't just talk about just comics anymore. You just can't. So. Yeah.
That's exactly it. You have to expand. There's 1,000,001 podcasts, websites that just focus on comic books, and I just wanted to be different. And really, the one thing about this show, and a lot of people have actually mentioned, even yesterday, I had this conversation with our guests when I was recording that segment, was, it's that water cooler speak. And, it's just whatever's happening in the world at that any given time, that's what we're going to talk about. So yeah, that's pretty much where we're at. You may have noticed that there are only two of us here today, Boris and Tyler. But for those of you who remember, there was a third.
That one of prophecy.
Yes, there was a third. And so, I'm very happy to announce that Kyle will be coming back for season 3.
What?
I know, right? But he couldn't be here today. So here we are. It's really cool to have Kyle back. He was a huge part of the success of the podcast and the website. So it's really good to have him back in the fold, in the team. I'm super happy about that. The other noticeable change that a lot of people probably noticed right away was our new theme song. I have to give a huge thank you to Kevin O'Leary, not that Kevin O'Leary, my Kevin O'Leary, audio engineer extraordinaire. He did a fantastic job with our theme music, and I can't thank him enough for getting that done. And it's something that I always wanted to do for the show, and I figured might as well with this revival get it up and running. So thanks so much, Kevin. That's where we're at right now.
Yeah.
So Tyler, season 3.
Season 3. I've been champing at the bit. I could keep her stories that come across my desk that I want to talk to. I message Boris now?
Yeah,
with question marks, and he'd be like, I am currently doing a Peace Corps thing. I am working on peace in the Middle East.
Yep.
And he's been busy.
Yeah, to say the least. But again, I am super happy that we are back. I think the other thing that we'll touch on is sort of the format of the show. I already mentioned that we will be expanding our sort of theme and our main conversation piece for the second hour. So we'll try to make it a 2-hour show, probably closer to 3 half the time. But in the first hour, we'll keep it to what our fans recognize, and that's sort of just us bantering about news, about ourselves, about whatever's going on in the world. And then the second half of the show, we will focus on a specific topic. For those of you who follow us on all of our social media, or any social media for that is, may have noticed that this week we are going to be talking about all things Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's and I find it very fitting as they are having their own revival this Sunday. It's their own season 3. We might as well have our season 3 and sort of chat about something that I think a lot of people are going to be interested in. Something that a lot of people have been talking about. Something that a lot of people have been really, really waiting for.
It's true.
Yeah. Next week, we will be talking about all things Guardians of the Galaxy. So we'll be talking about the comic, the movie, the Telltale game. We'll be talking about it all next week. So next week, or our next show, which should be next week, we will be chatting all things Guardians of the Galaxy. And then, have we firmed up what's coming after that? Like, did we?
We have been talking to some friends of the show about doing a Kickstarter special.
Yes.
Talking about Kickstarter, talking about both the behind the scenes of how do you run a successful Kickstarter, what are the, what's the logic behind it, how has it changed recently, because there's been kind of a change, I've noticed anyways, in how Kickstarter is run recently.
Yep.
It's no longer the purview of, you can't just have an idea and throw it up anymore and hope for the best. Like, it is a whole production, and you almost have to be an organized company to do them now.
Yep. You pretty much have to be. I think, and even then, some organized companies just can't get their shit together, so they end up getting sued. So we'll be talking about all things Kickstarter and really try to, have some people sort of promote that their own Kickstarter. Some, I guess, friends of at the It's Canon podcast.
True that.
So that'll be very fun. And then after that, I don't know where we're going to go after that. We have some ideas, but we haven't firmed anything up. But that's too far into the future. Let's focus on the today. Let's focus on the now. So it's been a long time.
It's been a long time.
Exactly. And like I mentioned, I've been super busy with work, to say the least. And that's pretty much it. Been jet setting, limo riding. Not really. But yeah, no, it's been super busy. Trying to make... I just blew right into the mic, and that must have sounded horrible. Trying to make time for Boris, some Boris time also. So I've pretty much used our hiatus to regenerate. Jesus. I don't even know where I was going with that. But just regenerate and get back to the mindset of, a weekly show. Because believe it or not, it is quite draining. With the planning and the recording and the whatever.
Yeah. Especially with the amount of, the website was getting unwieldy towards the end. People heard us talking about it a little bit, but the number of times that I'd have to send a message for us and be like, the website's not websiting.
Yeah.
Can't have been good for your mental health.
No, I spent too many hours actually just making sure that the website is reachable. And honestly, and it's a good thing that happened, because the reason why that was happening was because too many people were actually visiting our website. So go figure, right?
What? Yeah.
It becomes an issue when you're, too big. Not saying that, we were GameSpot big or something like that, but, we
were bigger than our britches.
Yeah, exactly.
We had to get new britches.
And, yeah, exactly. So like I said, I feel good. And for the next little bit, it's we're going to focus on the SoundCloud page. That's where you can find our podcasts. It's Canon Podcasts. You can find us on SoundCloud. You'll be able to find us on Twitter, Facebook, etc., etc. We've actually even expanded where you can find the podcast. You can now find us on, Google. Google's the main one that we're now featured in.
Google.
The Google.
Google.
Yeah, yes. So that's pretty cool. You can find us anywhere, basically. Anywhere that you can find a podcast. You can get the RSS, follow us, subscribe. When we update, you get notified. And,
there's also a lot of other really cool stuff coming down the pipeline as we get our stuff resorted and we continue on with season 3.
Yeah, it's going to be super exciting. And the sad part is, here we are talking about taking it easy, and I know within a couple months we're going to be right back to where we were.
Oh, I can't do it. Boris knows. Boris has heard what I do when I'm not on the podcast.
Exactly.
And how it's like, do you sleep? Like, my business day today will end at 2 a.m. tomorrow. It's going to be great.
Yeah, exactly. And same here. Like, I have when I'm not on the road, I am lucky enough to work from home in the sense that I don't have an office to go to. So all of my office is my home. So luckily, I can work here at any hour of the day. But sometimes, because you are working from home, your day just won't end. Which is not a bad thing. It just gets really, really busy. But yeah, gotta pay the bills. Gotta get the money, dollar bills, y'all.
Dem bills.
Dumb bills.
I do it all for the money.
Yes. Well, yeah. Exactly. So yeah, and then where are we? We're on New Year. Yeah, so then
2017.
Yeah, it's 2017. So yeah. Man, it's been a really long time since we've recorded.
True that.
I'm surprised I even still remember how to use all this equipment.
What is the internet?
Really,
No,
what is the internet?
A series of tubes. That's what I've heard.
Exactly.
I think the problem we're having this instant, I look at the time, is we don't remember how to turn from the initial vamping into getting into it.
No.
I can see us circling around and be like, how do we do?
It is what it is, really, at this point. And I kind of expected the first episode to be like this. I want people to remember how wacky we were.
Whackity schmackity doo.
Pretty much. Tyler, what have you been up to?
I got a quasi day job. I work for Lynn Vander Studios now as a writer, so I've been writing a ton of their stuff and then continue to just pump out materials. Those who've been following me have seen that. I've had quite a few new things come out and be published and more stuff coming to my name, and I keep doing that stuff. And then the result is also a very busy summer for me, so I've got lining up over the summer. I'm going to be at Origins, Gen Con, and Dragon Con so far. With time today spent being like, am I going to Con Bravo? Is this the thing I'm doing? So
Yeah, we got to talk about that. Yeah, I got your email. I wouldn't mind doing something.
I had a very successful occult panel last year that I've emailed the guy that I co-hosted that with and been like, hey, you want to do that again? So we'll see.
Cool. Very cool. Yeah, that's really cool. So anything else you want to tell our listeners?
I don't think so. I think that's it for right now. There's going to be a lot of stuff in the future.
Yep. And we'll catch up with Kyle when we catch up with him, because to be honest, it's been a while since we've even really spoken. Like, anytime we've spoken, it's been more on for business and then, than anything else. Because
last time I talked to Kyle, I was referring clients his way. And I was like, hope life's going good. Bye.
Yeah, exactly. And in all reality, I barely like the guy, so.
Oh, I know, right?
Exactly.
He smells weird.
He's a dumbass.
He's got a beard. We can't even fake it well.
I know, right? It's all good. And this is to test if he's actually listening to the show, which I know he doesn't. Useless bum. But it's all good. It's all good. And I'm saying again a lot, and it's something that I stopped doing by the end of our run. But here I am saying ums.
Can't happen.
Yeah.
What have you been up to?
Work.
Yeah.
A lot of work. That's about it. And I'm making really weird sounds into the microphone right now.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Well, it'll totally not get taken out in post, but then you'll listen to it and it'll drive you crazy. And then we'll just move on to the next thing.
Pretty much. So, Twin Peaks. We're going to be talking about Twin Peaks in the second half of the show. I am super excited to watch it, but we'll really get into that later. So, Tyler, is there anything you want to chat about while you...
I got a few things in news that I want to delve into.
All right.
And the first of which is, and I know this is a throwback, and I know that we're not focusing on comics anymore, but I want to talk the Diamond numbers for April.
Oh, yes. Let's do that. Do you have the numbers in front of you?
I have them in front of me. Comics have taken a hit.
To say the least.
First of all, Marvel has tumbled, and they're what, it was like a 10% lead for a while, is now down to only like a 4% lead in both unit and dollar share.
I'm not saying that, I can predict the future, but I can pretty much predict the future. And I'm pretty sure I predicted this.
Well, it's entertaining because they've tumbled.
Mm-hmm.
And almost everyone else has gone up.
Well, here's the thing, though. Marvel is doing something that always hurts a company. And that is they are trying to make something for everyone. And at the end of the day, you cannot please everyone, especially in comics. So I think they're just trying to, not only are they trying to be PC, not only are they trying to, create new female characters and, gay characters and, Hispanic and Asian and black characters and trying to expand their universe to this and that. And I think they're just trying to do too much right now.
I am going to disagree with you.
Well, you're an idiot.
Well, I'm saying that Ta-Nehisi Coates' Black Panther had roughly 35,000 sales of the first issue, which is amazing, and they canceled it.
Well,
I think
okay.
But I want to finish my thought. So we're gonna fight.
Yeah.
This is how we're gonna get back to it.
I know, right?
Instant fight. I don't think the problem is that they're trying to do too much. It's that they're not willing to understand they're going to take a hit as it shakes out.
Well, okay, so yes, so
I think they could do all those things, but they got to understand it's got to be like a year or two investment.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, you got to get if you want to grow the industry, which I have been touting as my cause for a while, and Saga has shown you can grow the industry, but you've got to lure people like my mom or my fiance. You got to lure them back into comic book stores because most of those stores they don't want to go into.
Oh God, no. So to further expand my thought, I think that it's too prone, and I think you nailed it with part of it. So I won't completely disagree with you, but I will say not only are they trying to do too much, I believe that there is a business expectation out of the realm of the comic book world that is hindering their overall efforts. Meaning that the business side, aka, Disney, Father Disney, has this weird expectation in terms of sales. And just like TV shows, they're just not letting it flush out and seeing where it can go. So, it's really, they want the ROI right away, as opposed to letting it simmer for, 6 to 12 issues, an arc, 2 arcs.
Agreed.
I think that it's the too prone effect, meaning hello,
I got a
doggy.
dog.
Yeah.
He disagrees with you.
I know,
He says
right?
you're wrong. He's very pro Disney though.
So I think that the business end is not only pressuring the creators to do more to appease everyone, but yet they're not giving anyone a full shot to flush out their ideas. So it's really just hurting them in the long run.
I think that's a bigger problem. I think that Marvel is big enough that if they're willing to say we're gonna take a year or two and we're gonna really invest in all these new characters, they have no courage or conviction anytime there's any pushback of any kind. They really seem to be like, oh, okay.
Yep. Having said that, I feel like, well, the creators can only do so much. They can only say so much. But
Totally. I'm saying it's Marvel.
no,
not the
no, I
creators.
know. So what I'm saying is, at what point as a creator do you just say, I don't want to work for Marvel because I know I'm going to be out of a job in 3 months? I know, and you know what? I can't even. For a lot of these people, that's their dream job. They've been working their entire life to get there. But at some point, it's kind of like, what do I do?
Well, and I think that a lot of people are just going to use it. And I think we're seeing it right now of why
As a resume
Marvel
builder.
and DC both can't keep the very best of the best writers,
Well,
and they end up going over to Image is because, or they end up, I don't know, writing for TV is because it makes for a great stepping stool in your career.
yeah, no, for
And
sure.
If they're okay with that, they can do that. But they need to be realistic. I feel like they want to keep the best writers ever without supporting them or paying them what they would need to.
Yes.
And understand. And again, I'm going to harp on this again forever, as I always have. I think the comics industry needs to grow, but no one seems to be willing to work on that, except for like the Valkyries, which are an NGO, and like a bunch of indie people are trying to grow the industry, and then all the big players aren't.
Well, at the end of the day, the big players don't care about the industry.
I agree.
They are a business. They have shareholders that they have to appease. They don't care about comic books themselves. They care about the bigger picture. And right now, the bigger picture is movies. But the funny part is, let's take a look at Marvel Studios. And this might be a bad example, but let's just take a look at Marvel Studios. If you don't have the characters that people want to see in the movies, you won't be able to make successful movies.
Oh, totally. And the other part is, the comics are serving as your test bed for let's figure out which plots work best in advance, and then we can just do that last round of extra polish. So it's really they're almost using it as R&D.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I've heard some people get really mad about, and I'm like, I don't know, to an extent, like we've always adapted stuff a lot. So I don't know.
No, it's just a weird thing. It's just, as the Marvel Cinematic Universe is leaving this, the current era where, we've been building up, 10 years of characters, with a lot of these characters most likely to retire shortly, not appear in movies. Are they going to recast? Or are they going to just introduce new characters? Well, good luck trying to introduce new characters if no one knows who they are. You've been very lucky with Guardians of the Galaxy. You've been very lucky with some properties. But
I think it was a combination of luck and them giving a talented director and writer the room he needed.
Well, yeah.
And they are becoming increasingly less willing to do that.
Well, yes, we've talked about it in previous seasons about the restrictions that these directors, writers are having, and that's why you're seeing a lot of these people move away from these cinematic universes. Universi.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I was going to say, I'm just trying to double check my source right now, but I saw a report recently that was saying that they're projecting this is going to be the worst summer blockbuster season in a decade.
Really?
That they're projecting, and Hollywood's gotten pretty good at projecting, how good or bad they're going to do in advance. I'm trying to find that report again, but they were saying that it's not looking good.
Interesting.
And yeah. Problem is, when you search for that, most places are selling the propaganda line.
Yeah.
And I'm not mad at the propaganda line, but it's their advertising pieces, right?
Yeah, exactly.
People who are still like, no, King Arthur's going to do great, even though it's already bombing.
King Arthur. Oh, that movie looks horrible. It looks horrible. Any luck finding that? No?
No.
All right, we'll move on. Yeah, no, that's interesting. I can see why some people are predicting that. Like, I know Wonder Woman, they're not expecting a huge opening weekend.
Although marketing may have something to do with that.
Marketing, what's that?
I know. Why would we market a movie?
Yeah, especially a movie that people were really excited about to begin with. Um,
If you guys want actually a really good tongue-in-cheek explanation of what we're complaining about here, Cracked has a great video about the lack of marketing for Wonder Woman.
yeah,
It has a joke.
yeah, like it's coming out June 1st or
And
2nd.
and almost no one knows.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Considering that we got the everything up all in our faces for Batman v Superman and Suicide Squad, and then the one that has a lot of promise is the one that's not being promoted whatsoever.
Yep.
Go figure.
Well, yep. And like we're going opening night in part because we want those metrics.
Yeah.
And it's not even like it's just like we also want opening night to Guardians too,
Yeah.
and it's just they need those metrics of the movies you want to watch.
Exactly.
And then it's the weird thing if they look at both reviews and at sales. So yep.
Stupid Skype kind of killed you a little bit there, but that's all right. I'm not even gonna edit this out.
How dare you, Skype?
I know, right?
But yeah, overall, back to the comics thing we started before going this thing. Overall, sales are way down.
Do you have the
10% lower dollar graphic novel sale between April to March. Graphic novels for the graphic novels year to date are down 14%. The only thing that's up is unit share of comics is up year to date. Everything else is way down, and the dollar value is down.
Right. Well,
Toys took a beating with April 2017 20% lower than April 2016. Toys April 2017 are down 45% versus March 2017. It's just they're taking a beating.
Well, with the toys, I can speak to that from my personal collecting habits. They're releasing too much. Nothing is special anymore, and what they are, it's just too much all of a sudden. And I'm everything's bleh right now. It's just meh. There's nothing that I want to collect right now. For the longest time, you would get a couple releases a year, major releases of toys, and collect their items. Especially those DC statues, like the black and white ones. I love those. And but now they're just releasing them all the time, and it's just like, I understand why they're doing it, but it's just I find that it's just too much all of a sudden, and it's just the overall oversaturation of the market. That's I think is really giving a beating to themselves.
Yeah.
I don't know. So in your personal opinion, what do you think? Is it time to hit the panic button? Is it time to reevaluate things? What do you think?
Well,
these companies are realistically going to do versus what do you think the companies should do?
I mean, it's hard to say a little bit because you don't know how much that loss is due to just the big two and how much is the entire industry. Especially Image, right? Where Image is still, it's clawing its way up. It's at about 11% of the dollar share right now. And admittedly, that's driven a lot by their big players. But it's hard to say how much of that, like how much is the big ones or how much is hitting them as well.
Yeah.
And I think that you're right. A big part of it is they don't know what they're doing. They're not willing to invest in these properties and ride it out. And they're not
For Marvel, for sure.
For Marvel, sure. I would argue DC as well when they're already talking about maybe we won't do this whole Watchmen thing. Maybe.
Well, I don't know. I think there's more to that than
100%. There's 100% a lot of factors to it.
I just find, I don't know, and this might be my DC bias, that right now DC has somewhat of a plan. in terms of and who would have thought that we'd be saying that about DC? DC has some sort of a release plan. They sort of know where they want the comics to go. With the whole Rebirth was a 2-year story. We're about a year in. We're about halfway in right now, and we'll see sort of where it's going to end up. Obviously, changes happen, and that's absolutely normal. But I think that overall, taking a look at where DC was a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, they're at a much better place to execute on their plan than Marvel is. I
think you're right.
I think overall Marvel is just they panic and then they try to change things up. And ultimately, at the end of the day, what's hurt both companies, Marvel more, are the renumberings and the rebrandings that they've had. The reboots.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, I think you're right. I think that the only thing we do need to talk about a little bit is DC's plan works really well for right now, but it does nothing for them for 10 years.
No, of course not.
Right? Like DC has basically been like, we're just going to take these people who are our core audience who's been with us for 20 years, and we're marketing to them, and that's fine, but they're getting older and they're dying off, and they're not getting replaced. Huh?
I said not literally.
Well, they're starting to.
Yeah. Well, some,
right?
Yeah.
Some of them are in their 40s and 50s, and that's, when you start to see the unfortunate, both literal dying off of, it's sad, but people die.
Yeah.
And the other side of it of, they start running out of money to spend on comics.
Yeah, people get married and have
children.
Other priorities.
Get sick, especially in the United States. Like, if you get sick, that's it.
I don't even want to touch that
yeah,
right now.
No, I went too far.
I don't even want to.
Hold on back and talk about the Deadpool. We got a Deadpool TV show. Donald Glover is producing.
Go ahead. Talk about it.
Donald Glover and his brother Steven Glover will write, produce, and serve as executive producers for a 10-episode R-rated Deadpool series.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to say the least. I don't know. We'll see.
It's fascinating. Who knows?
Though Fox and FX, if they put it on FX, it'll do well. FX can get... Huh?
They're saying they're going to do.
You can do a lot more on FX. Fargo and Legion and things like that.
Yeah. Agreed. They'd also make it R-rated. I think that helps. Other new news. We could talk about Arrested Development's coming back for a 5th season. Jason Bateman signed on.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Arrested Development. I forgot about that.
It's so much that we have to get back to. I'm like, oh, right.
Yeah. So that 4th season, it was good. I liked it, but it was kind of very standalone-ish.
Yeah, well, it was kind of supposed to be, right? It was just them testing the water of will you guys come back? And people were like, yes, but do better than this.
Yeah, exactly. I liked it overall, but yeah, there was parts of it that could have been improved, to say the least.
What other thing we need to talk about? I don't want to talk about fidget spinners.
Yes.
I hate them. Why did this happen?
I don't know.
I feel like it's 100% because we weren't there to stand against this rising tide of fidget spinners.
Tell us how you really feel.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Look, it's gonna be another fad. It's gonna be like yo-yos were in the 90s.
Yeah, but
and then all you people are gonna be able to do is fidget spinner tricks, and no one's gonna be able to care.
Yeah, but yo-yos are cool.
Sure.
Yeah, so one of the cool things that happened when we were on hiatus was Nintendo released, not only announced, but they released the Nintendo Switch.
Oh yeah. Have you played one yet?
No, I haven't.
I also haven't been able to even find one to play. There's a video game place in town here in Guelph, and they can't even get one.
Yeah, my friend, she lives up in Newmarket, and, you would assume that these smaller towns can more than likely get, their hands on a copy. But, yeah, no, it's impossible to find right now. It's absolutely impossible. Look, I travel a shit ton, and I have not been able to find one. And it's something that I legitimately do.
It's insane.
Though I shouldn't be announcing that on the internet, where someone can say, "Oh, this guy," you know. Anyway.
Although it's probably worth saying, a Nintendo Switch is designed for someone like you. You're in the airplane so much and you're around that if you can be like, I got on the go, I can just do this.
Yeah, exactly. I can only watch so many movies. I can only stay on my tablet for so long before
I hear you.
I go nuts.
I hear you. I would love to have one.
Yeah, no, same.
So
yeah.
if we have a millionaire fan who wants to make us happy,
Our own sugar daddy or sugar mama, I'm all good. I would make an awesome stay-at-home husband, trophy husband.
Yep.
I don't know what trophy.
I like to call it a house spouse.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Everyone's talking about Legend of Zelda. It looks amazing. I would love to play it someday.
So my cousin in LA has one, and he posts pictures on Facebook because, you can do the whole sharing thing. It just looks beautiful.
He's a monster.
And then, my cousin in a third world country has a Nintendo Switch, and I'm like, seriously.
He's also a monster.
Yeah, I know. It's just ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
How dare they?
But good for them. Good for Nintendo. Finally, it'll be interesting to sort of follow where they're going in terms of, or how they're doing overall with the Switch. I think it's already surpassed sales of the Wii U. The Wii U did not do well overall at all.
The Wii U was an interesting idea. They never really knew what to do with.
Mm-hmm.
Like it set up for like doing a bunch of really cool things with asymmetry in your games, and then never delivered an asymmetry in their games.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, that's exactly it. And yeah, I just find, but there was no marketing around it. People didn't really know that it was a thing. It was the Wii and then the Wii U. Yeah. So I don't know. I'll be very interested to sort of see what they're doing with that and sort of see how Sony and Microsoft respond. Because obviously it's, for once, Nintendo has really, I don't want to say hurt.
I wouldn't say for once, because the Wii kicked butt.
Yeah, you're right.
And they have always demolished in the handheld environs. Although that's become relatively more of a thing for markets that aren't North America. Because we are okay with cell phones just forever. That being said, since we started recording, Nintendo announced Legend of Zelda is going to be coming to smartphone.
There you go.
So that'll add with a bunch of other games. I tried both their Final Fantasy and their... What's the other one? The other
Mario?
very anime one. With Roy and Marth. Fire Emblem.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't not for me. They were bad, just they're not for me. But it just keeps happening. There's supposed to be a Mario game coming soon. So Nintendo has agreed. Smartphones are the way of the future.
Well, the Mario game's already out.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Shit.
It's it's already out. It's expensive. I think to get the full game, it's like $15-16.
Oh, good. So Nintendo hasn't learned too much.
No. These companies, no, not at all. They don't learn much.
They haven't really figured out what's going on.
No, not yet. X-Men TV series has officially been ordered by Fox.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Fox has ordered the new X-Men connected television series, officially called The Gifted. Not to confuse people with The Gift.
Or Girl with All the Gifts. Or The Gifted, which is a movie.
Yes.
Or...
Yes. The Gifted. For the 2017-2018 TV season. A new trailer, a teaser was released to coincide with the announcement, with the full trailer debuting Monday, May 15th, today. We don't know how many episodes the first season is going to have or any real information like that.
So here's a question. Are you watching Legion?
Yes, I am, sir.
So I am watching it too, but I'm not caught up. But I can't find a single other person who is.
I know a few.
Okay.
Yeah.
And people are liking it.
People are loving it.
It's. I know it's just my network. I can't find a single person who's watching it.
I know quite a few.
Very cool.
But again, these are people who they do their own thing. Yeah. So yeah, I know a few. I've seen many Facebook posts about how much they love it, and it kicks all of the other comic TV shows' ass.
I agree. It's really good and it's really different. But I mean, I'm worried they're going to try to start linking it and make like the whole spin-off shows and stuff, which seem to be often the death knell for these things. But.
Yeah, going the CW way. So we'll see.
Yep.
We'll see what happens. Hopefully, Fox with Deadpool, they kind of figured out what their winning formula is, and then with Logan, so we'll see sort of what happens.
So good.
Logan?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. It was really good.
There's another piece of big news that is also kind of comics to do the nod to our roots. Detective Harper, because I refused to, Hooper, because I refused to call him David Harbour, which is his real name, is going to be Hellboy in a new Hellboy reboot.
Yes. That is probably one of the biggest announcements that happened late last Monday. Monday night. I subscribed to a bunch of RSS feeds for news. And that's how I, keep in the know. And then I got this weird one at, God knows what time. It
was late, because it was confirmed by, a Mike Mignola,
tweet.
Facebook post or something.
Yeah, it was a tweet, a random fucking tweet.
Oh, yeah.
And it was, so comic book artist Mike Mignola just revealed that his most famous creation, Hellboy, is going to receive the movie reboot treatment. The reboot will be R-rated. Magnola said on social media, and be helmed by The Descent and Dog Soldiers director Neil Marshall.
Also from Game of Thrones.
Yes.
Which is a little bit better than Dog Soldiers.
Yes. Yeah. David Harbour, most recently known in his role in Stranger Things, will be Hellboy.
Yeah. And, people are mad, and some people are happy. I think that
it needed the reboot treatment, in my opinion.
I understand why they did it.
Yeah.
I think for a financial standpoint, it's a great call, especially to be able to we're just going to do it R-rated and it's going to be amazing, and just don't worry about it. But I understand why a lot of people are we would have liked to see the end of the Ron Perlman one.
Yeah, no, for sure. But after so many years, and people, whether it be Guillermo del Toro or Ron Perlman, saying yes, no, it's just at some point they need to just say, okay, this is what we're gonna do.
Totally.
Because even Ron Perlman, as much as his fans want to say he's been all in for this, he keeps switching his mind.
Totally.
And you can only wait for so long before you say, hey, we need to do this.
Well, and the proof. I mean. Deadpool being the proof of concept of, hey, we can do R-rated and it's going to make money.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's a good sign. I think that's where a lot of this is coming from.
Yep. So Gotham has been renewed for a 4th season.
Oh, yeah.
That just goes to show you. It must be doing better than we think.
Again, just because we don't see anyone doesn't mean they don't exist.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yep. CW has ordered Black Lightning to series. So they're going... producer Greg Berlanti's 5th DC drama on the network. And I don't know if it's going to be in the CW-verse, which one can only assume that it will be. The Arrowverse. So we'll see. We'll see. 5 DC shows on the CW.
It's crazy.
Hey, power to them, right?
Yep.
Well, here's the one thing. So, jumping back to Gotham. Let's announce a new season. But the death note to any show, Twin Peaks knows all about this, is when they switch the night. So Gotham is moving from Monday to Thursday nights.
That's it. It's over.
It's over, in my opinion. Yeah, it's over. Yep. Sci-Fi has officially ordered Krypton as a series.
Boo.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens. I don't know.
I think it's a rough series to do, especially when like they won't support shows like The Expanse. But I mean, that's a great show that can't find an audience, and I understand the difficulty if it's like they keep re-signing it for whatever reason, even though it's not making the money they want it to.
Yeah, who knows? Oh,
Yeah.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has been renewed for season 5.
Yeah,
There was
Brooklyn Nine-Nine got renewed, which no one was really surprised by.
Yeah.
So, even though it was done at the 11th hour.
Yeah, then I find that that's happening a lot right now.
I'm wondering how much of it's contract negotiations behind the scenes.
That's exactly it. I don't know too much about TV, to be 100% honest. It's very different than movies. Obviously, very different than comics, but I think TV is the medium where I know the least about the business end of things.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. So we got a Doomsday Clock email. November 2017, Jeff Johns, Gary Frank, and Brad Anderson, Superman and Dr. Manhattan meet in Doomsday Clock.
Okay.
So, there we go.
I really don't care about the thing. I don't know.
You're just bitter.
A little. I'm an old man.
You are.
Do
You really, really are.
you want to hear me not be bitter?
Yeah.
We can talk about the fact that I'm an American god somehow.
Oh, dear God. Yeah.
So those who may remember, I talked about it in the show before, I snuck on set, and in episode 3, there is a moment when you see a very blurry character in the background leaning up against a tree. Well, that's me. Because they didn't kick me off set until after they finished shooting, because they didn't notice.
That is hilarious.
I'm not credited.
If actor finds out, you can get in a lot of trouble. Well, not you, the production. The union.
Yep.
And that's why I do not like having things connected, because I'm getting messages. Yeah. The Defenders, Marvel's The Defenders. The first trailer has come out. What do you think about it?
Looks a lot better than
the other thing that came out
Fist.
recently. Yes, Iron Fist. So this is my segue into this conversation. Iron Fist.
Okay.
Iron Fist.
Yep.
What did you think about it?
There's a lot of ways it could have been saved. I thought they were going one direction, and then they didn't.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it seemed to start with a really cool thing about abuse and, like, dealing with that, living through it. And then they just kind of like, or, whatever. Don't worry about it. We're just not going to deal with that
It quickly turned into Arrow Light.
Yep.
Which we called. We called it.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah.
It's just, I thought they were going to do a whole thing about, shitty parents. And they didn't. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know. I borderline did not care for it. And yeah, I just don't, I don't know. I think I need to try to rewatch it. I didn't hate it, and I didn't like it for, other reasons than critics were, killing it for. But for me, personally, it just wasn't my cup of beer.
Yep, I hear you.
So,
I'm with you.
Yeah. We're not going to be talking about Guardians of the Galaxy because we have a whole episode dedicated to that.
Oh, and I have so much to say.
I do too. Do you want to tell our listeners how they can get a hold of us?
You can find us on Twitter at It's Canon Podcast. You can find us on Facebook if you've already liked us, you'll just transfer right over. SoundCloud, iTunes, Google, Podcast, all those places you can find us. And we got more stuff coming, so just watch those places, and yeah.
Exactly, and we have a ton of really cool things coming up that I'm really excited for. We have some, I almost said with some of the stuff, but I will try not to ruin anything. So we are going to take a small little break, and when we come back, we are going to be chatting about all things Twin Peaks.
Yeah!
Back.
Yeah!
I'm surprised it lasted that long with considering how sick I am.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Make it.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you again for listening to the It's Canon podcast, where we talk all things comic, movies, books, RPGs, pogs, anything. And you know what the best part of it all is, Tyler?
I think that has something to do with it all being in canon.
That's right. It's all in canon.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that we actually called the podcast the It's Canon podcast. So
It was
kudos to you and
call.
Kyle to convincing me on that one.
Yep.
As I drink my water so I can talk for another hour or so.
We'll make it.
Exactly. We will. So Twin Peaks. We're going to be this half where we will focus on our topic / subject of the week. And this week it's this little phenomena, something like a phenomena, Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
Twin motherfucking Peaks. That's right. We're going to be talking about all things Twin Peaks with the revival and season 3 releasing this Sunday, May the 21st. I think it's only appropriate that we take some time to chat about a show that really changed the way that people watch TV in America, the way that TV shows are made in America, the way that TV is consumed, the way that TV really is. Would you say that's a fair statement?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely watching it now. You can tell that it shaped a lot of things that happened later.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there were some serial dramas before Twin Peaks, but none of them captivated audiences the way that Twin Peaks did. The famous saying, the water cooler talk the next day at work was really, really made because of Twin Peaks, especially after the pilot. The who done it, who killed Laura Palmer. That was, and every week, David Lynch and Mark Frost just kept throwing curveball after wrenches, after kitchen sinks at us with so much information, with so many clues, with so much of everything. And at the end of the day, people were just trying to figure out who done it.
Mm-hmm.
The most interesting fact for me, and I talk about this with Aiden and Lindsay from the Bickering Peaks podcast, which you will hear the interview in a little bit, is the fact that David Lynch at no point wanted to solve whodunit.
Yeah.
At no point did he actually want to have a conclusion to the whodunit. Essentially, for the pilot and for the first few episodes, it was going to be the most important theme of the show, but little by little, it was going to become a background story.
Yeah, definitely.
And, I wish that networks allowed David Lynch and Mark Frost to do what they wanted to do with Twin Peaks, but, at the end of the day, ABC is ABC. These larger networks, especially at that time with this really being the first show to do what they did in terms of this storytelling, I can see why they wanted conclusion. Everything needs a beginning and an end, right?
Yeah.
So, the second season really did suffer because of this. The second season, we found out who finally killed Laura Palmer, and then it turned into this weird fiasco of randomness. We had stories that took us outside of Twin Peaks. We had new characters coming into Twin Peaks. But what was always interesting about these characters is that they had no real connection to Laura Palmer, and I find that that's what made the show, is what is people's connection to Laura Palmer. So when we had these new characters introduced, it was sort of like, I don't care about you because I don't want to know anything about you because you have nothing to do with, our core group of characters.
Yeah.
And then,
no, definitely.
Yeah, and the show got a little wacky with just randomness, absolutely random stories. And then by the end of the season, it really picked up its groove again, especially with the season finale, because it was directed by David Lynch, written by Mark Frost and David Lynch. So, things finally picked up at the very end, but by then it was too little too late, and ABC had pulled the plug. And then about 2 years later, Fire Walk With Me was released, completely made entirely by David Lynch, and it was a real change in tone, to say the least, about Twin Peaks. Did you get a chance to watch the movie?
I didn't. No,
Oh.
I didn't get that much done in time.
Yeah.
I missed Twin Peaks the first time around.
Yes. Oh, well,
So I had to watch it just for this episode.
Yes.
And I didn't even manage to finish the second season, not for lack of wanting to, but just it became a time thing.
Yeah, no, exactly. This episode really crept up on us. Really, the movie was very dark. Very, very dark. And again, I speak to this with Aiden and Lindsay. And it was very different. So you see a real divide amongst the fan base in terms of how they feel about Fire Walk With Me. Overall, I would say that I personally liked it for many reasons that you'll hear later, and it gave us a proper ending to Twin Peaks. Because who would have thought that, 26 years later, we have season 3 of Twin Peaks with much of the original cast coming back.
Which is kind of crazy.
It really is. This is unprecedented. This is, a first, obviously, for TV. I don't think there's been that many years between seasons of any TV show, not even Doctor Who. Nothing. I think Doctor Who was 21 years between seasons.
Yes, but they also had a movie in the middle. Oh, I guess they also had a movie in the middle there.
They had movies and stuff in the middle.
Yeah.
Twin Peaks kind of did too, but not kind of, they did. But
Yeah.
I think it's just a lot of things going on here. And what's really interesting about season 3 of Twin Peaks, and I love the fact that I can actually say that, season 3 of Twin Peaks.
Season 3
of Twin Peaks and the It's Canon podcast, is the fact that David Lynch directed all 18 hours of the show. And the reason why I say 18 hours of the show is because the way he directed it essentially is one long movie. And they will be, through the editing process, they will be cutting those hours and hours into episodes. So, I think it was the Showtime president was mentioning at one point that, one episode might be longer than the next, might be shorter than the next. So it'll be very cool to sort of see how they do that. And I know that a lot of HBO shows do this. I know The Sopranos for sure did this, because some episodes were about 40 minutes, some episodes were 50, others were over an hour, but usually they were around an hour. But yeah, my point is, we're going to see TV very differently starting this Sunday on Showtime with season 3 of Twin Peaks.
Mhm.
So, you know, I go into detail about sort of my experience with Twin Peaks. You know, I knew that it was a thing when I was younger in terms of I have these visions, the memories that I watched the original run. You know, my parents basically didn't care too much about what I watched, so I would basically watch whatever my brother was watching, or I would go into the room and just flip the channels. And you know, I don't know what a 5-6 year old kid is doing alone on a Sunday night, you know, on a school night. But I do remember watching bits and pieces of the original run, so that piqued my interest. Get it? Piqued my interest.
I got you. I picked you up.
All right.
Put down.
All right, just want to make sure that you know how hilarious I am.
Yep.
And when Canadian Netflix, you know, first ran with the show, around 2011 or so, that's when I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna actually watch the show, and I just fell in love with it. And really, I think for me, I would say that Twin Peaks is the number one show for me. I have just a borderline obsession with the show, and I think you and Kyle know this really well, that I reference Twin Peaks in almost every episode that we've ever recorded of the show.
Yep.
So that's...
It turns out that his references are actually a series of premonitions that you can put together, and you'll solve a secret other mystery.
That would have been hilarious if I actually were that witty and brilliant.
No, if we just say it, it becomes true. Someone will solve it, and we'll be like, you solved it. Here's a prize.
What am I, James Gunn?
Yeah.
We'll talk about that next week. But yeah, no, so that's sort of my history, and I kind of gave you the Coles notes because I get into more detail with Aiden and Lindsay. But, you know, I know that I kind of force you to watch it, but what's your experience with Twin Peaks and whatnot?
Yeah, so I came to it late, and I got through all the first season and a bit of the second. It was one of those things that I didn't even hear about until probably 2005 or so. And then there are parts of this show that age very well, and there's parts of it that don't age very well.
Exactly.
And the opening, especially, every time I watched it, when I was doing the second watch, I'm like, oh my god, this is terrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
That does not age well, and there's some other bits that are they're super 90s, and there are parts that just remind you how 90s this is, and you're like,
yeah.
Oh, if you had just been treated better by Hollywood.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. It was a very, very 90s, and you know,
and you can tell the budget is not what a show like this would get right now.
Oh, exactly. And that's part of it. And again, I talk about this later. So I love how I'm sort of setting up that entire conversation with what we're talking about, where we do talk about the fact that, you know, this was given a very limited budget, and David Lynch did what he could with that limited budget, and he sort of took what he knew and what he does in his art form in making movies and tried to translate that into making TV. And yeah, it was just a very... it worked, but at times it was very noticeable that, like, you know, it's like if I had that extra $100, I could have made this that much cooler.
Yep.
But yeah, no. So yeah, and I think the obvious question to ask you right now is, what do you think of Twin Peaks?
I have a lot of complicated thoughts about it. Honestly, that's a big part of it. The biggest thing I would love is I was like, oh man, if only you had been born now, and you'd have done a show like this, but you'd have done a bunch of it entirely differently. And it'd be fascinating to see what that would be like. But there are some parts that I feel like come from the aesthetic and pastiche of the era.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the explanation. Like, the explanation of a lot of the supernatural elements.
Mm-hmm.
Is not, like, they are awesomely done. But some parts of it are just like a little, okay, it doesn't have to be a demon thing. We just don't have to explain it. And that's a thing you could do with now.
Yeah.
And you wonder how much that was, they were like, no, you have to explain it. And I think, and he's like, Okay.
And I think that was exactly it. I think David Lynch wanted to really keep a lot of things a mystery. And, if you've watched his other pieces of work like Blue Velvet and Lost Highway, not everything that he does has a clear, explanation to it. A lot of it is really left to the audience. And that influence is sort of seen on more modern day shows. Something like, Lost and Stranger Things really come to mind when you think about that, where a lot of things are left to the audience, the viewer, to sort of figure out and sort of fill in the gap, which it works for some viewers, but I know some people who just need to be told everything and need to find out everything, and everything needs to be wrapped up in a neat little package by the time that the finale is over. But I just absolutely, I want to use my imagination like a little more, in the sense that not everything needs to be explained, and some things don't need to be explained.
And I think that a lot of that is the difference between the 90s and now, where nowadays you can get away with explaining less.
Yeah, exactly.
And way back then you couldn't.
Exactly. And I think that, to your point, I think David Lynch and Mark Frost were forced to do a lot of these explanations because they're like, but the audience needs to know. Some dude in a suit walking up to them saying, no, we can't do this. The audience needs to know who killed Laura Palmer. The audience needs to know where, how all this ties into
but
the
why
occult.
Is there a supernatural thing? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So yeah, I think that, to your point, if that show, it's kind of hard to say because I don't think Twin Peaks, if it didn't come out when it did, there are a lot of TV shows that would not have ever come out at all.
I agree. But yeah, it's just one of those weird beasts of, it could have been so different if it wasn't when it was, but also if it wasn't when it was, so many other things wouldn't have happened.
Exactly. Like it really did change TV. And so yeah, it's a very interesting point there. It's like, I wish it came out later because it would have been so much better, but I'm thankful that it came out when it did because we wouldn't have been able to have this conversation.
Yep.
So yeah, and I think that's what's going to make this season that much more special, where David Lynch has been given free reins basically to do what he wants, to tell a story the way that he wants to, with the characters he wants to, the way that, like, really just, this is David Lynch and Mark Frost, being David Lynch and Mark
let's
Frost.
finish it up. Let's wrap up our thing.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Well,
as much as I think they're going to wrap it up, like, it's going to be a purposely never fully finished.
Yeah, because there's
like it's going to have an ending, but not everything's going to be explained. It's like the ending of starring Harrison Ford, but replicants, Blade Runner.
Oh yeah.
Where the original, you didn't get to know whether he was a replicant or not, and that was the point, is that you didn't know.
Yep.
But you had evidence to both explanations.
Yep, exactly. Oh, that's something that we can talk about. Anyways, but yeah, no, I think, and also David Lynch, they've asked him, do you plan on making more? And he's like, never say never, and he's really leaving the door open. So I think you're right in the sense that, while we will get, explanations to a lot of questions and expansion to a lot of themes that we saw in the original 2 seasons, I think this season is going to take that and just, really take it to 100 miles per hour and just go balls deep with it.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you have anything else to say about Twin Peaks for you? And sort of your thoughts?
I will say that dialogue, I want to give them props to the dialogue, because it is at once both amazingly surreal and bizarre, but also weirdly compelling, and you get on board with it, and how, the characterization and the dialogue he does are insanely good at being weird but believable.
Yeah, exactly.
These are all weird characters, but they're believably weird. Yeah.
To say the least.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. Like, yeah, the dialogue is one thing that, people pick up on right away, and saying, it's, some people can see it as very cheesy, but it's more, I find that, like, David Lynch and Mark Frost really analyzed. And, maybe we might be overanalyzing things, but I feel like they really did put an effort to make sure that every line that every character speaks has some sort of significance somewhere, or at least make it seem like it does.
Yeah. Well, yeah, everything is at the very least forwarding the story or developing a character. It's there's nothing that's thrown in just for the sake of being thrown in, which is always a sign of good writing.
Exactly, and that's one of the really cool parts about the show in general, and I really like, because it's I don't know, it just adds a whole other element to it. We can we can really take this and have a whole episode just about the dialogue. So that's dialogue. In terms of characters, you already spoke a little bit about the characters themselves, but do you want to expand sort of on your thoughts on sort of what you think about the characters, and then the obvious question: who's your favorite and who's your least favorite?
Oh, jeez. Oh, no. Vamping Will, I think. I gotta say that it's really compelling how much is genuinely it's interesting characters. It's characters who are, like I said before, they are all very believable within their world. You're not like, well, that guy makes no sense. What is he doing? And it all comes together, and they do a surprisingly good job of. I mean, Cooper is an insane person, but everyone is just kind of on board, and it's a very good job about keeping you being like, I guess, yeah, we're suspending our disbelief together, and we're going to go on this adventure together.
Yeah.
Cooper would be my favorite character, and then.
And I like the fact that you said that we're going on this adventure together, because, everyone in this town knows each other. It's a town of 5,000, just over 5,000 people. And I know someone's going to say the exact number to me, probably yelling it right now. A town of over just 5,000 people, everyone knows each other. Everyone knows everyone's story, or so we think. And, because Agent Cooper is the outsider, we kind of are taking this ride with him. Literally, the first time that we are introduced with him, we're in the passenger seat of the car as he's having this conversation about what he's doing in Twin Peaks, as he's talking to his recorder, to this mysterious character known as Diane, which I'll bring it up right now. No, I'll wait on that. So go ahead.
Bring it up! Do it!
All right, Diane. One of the many fan theories is that there is no Diane. That he's just talking, he's basically batshit crazy, and he's talking to no one.
I don't know. There's a lot that gets added, especially towards the end of the first season, that is used to justify his insanity, or at least being like, when he says something, they work out. It works out.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. And I think that's one of the things. Like, he is insane. Like you said, he is such an eccentric character, and his beliefs are absolutely out there. His obsession with Tibet is one of my favorite things in the show. But I find that, after he has the dream in episode 3, and he calls Harry Truman up saying, "I know who killed Laura Palmer, but it can wait." That's one of my favorite scenes, because it's like, no, it can't. But the next morning when Cooper, Truman, and Lucy are sitting at the table together, and he flat out says he doesn't remember, but he's explaining this dream vividly, you can kind of tell Lucy and mainly Harry Truman is like, this guy's fucking crazy. But he's been
then they
right.
Go on with his thing with throwing the rocks.
Yeah, I know. Oh, yeah, I know.
And the experts show up. There's so much weird stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's one of the things. The point I'm trying to make is that he's right a lot more often than he's not. So why wouldn't you believe him? As crazy as this guy is, you might as well believe him.
Yep.
Anyways, go back to what you were saying about their characterizations and characters.
Cooper's my favorite character, because as much as he starts out as an insane person, he's our protagonist, and you're gonna be on board with that.
Yeah. What about your least favorite character?
I was gonna say I'm trying to remember his name, but Doodly Mick Weird Glasses.
Dr.
Fucking-
Jacoby?
Yeah. Just, I don't know. Meh.
He's so creepy on so many levels.
Creepy, and I don't know. Like, and I get that they're doing like a magical realism / surrealism approach to things, but so much of it is like just arrest him for being a creeper.
Yeah, like the way that he talks about Laura and like sort of when he talks, it's so creepy the way he talks about her. Like, this is a 17-year-old girl. You've been seeing her for the past few months as a patient. you know, it's just so creepy, and just the way that he talks about her, how he couldn't penetrate her and things like that. It's just like, dude, calm the fuck down. You know?
Yep.
You are weirding me the fuck out. Yeah, just so, yeah, Dr. Jacoby was a really weird character throughout season 1 and mostly season 2. Well, throughout the show, but yeah, he was just creepy as shit to start with.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about the soundtrack? What did you think of the soundtrack?
I didn't even notice it that much.
Really?
Which is, often the sign of a good soundtrack. I mean, it's just like, I'm not a big music person.
Ah, maybe that's it.
But if I didn't consciously notice it, usually it's a good thing because it's adding to the rest of the scene, and I tend to only notice soundtracks if it's bad. So, yeah.
Yeah. I'm playing a little bit of it right now.
Yeah.
And I just absolutely loved it. So it's like how easy and soft and, it was. It's just, I really liked it. I really liked it a lot. Again, I go into detail with this with Aiden and Lindsay, and really one of the things that I absolutely loved about it was we had the this 50s 80s theme to the entire show, and where we get the 50s where everything was all nice and the soundtrack was all guitar and fun, and then we had the 80s when anything ominous was happening, and we had more of a synthesizer and things like that, and then we had this more jazzy stuff when it was more the occult. So the song that's playing right now, you hear it a lot in the Red Room and things like that, and then something a little sad, like Laura Palmer's theme. It's more into the synthesizers and things like that, so it was more modern if you remember when the show was made.
Yep.
So yeah, the music, in my opinion, had a huge part in the overall storytelling of the show and whatnot, and I really loved it. I absolutely loved it. Like, I can listen to this shit, any time of day.
I hear you.
But yeah, that's it's just something that I really enjoyed, and it's something that always stood out any run through that I've had of the show. And I remember that first time that I really watched it as an adult, it was one of the first things I noticed was said soundtrack. But yeah, so do you have any other insights?
Not really. Again, you're to talk about a lot already of the what's what I'm looking for, the way it's impacted art that came after it, and what that has all resulted in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's always really interesting, and I think that watching it now, it's so blatantly obvious how much of that has been shaped by that side of it.
Exactly. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And, it's coming back after 26 years for a reason,
Mm-hmm.
And who knows what David Lynch has in store. Who knows what that magical, magnificent mind has for us. I honestly just cannot wait. And it's just, I can't believe we're 6 days away from recording time. 6 days away to a new episode of Twin Peaks.
That's true.
Are you going to watch it?
I'm going to finish season 2 first.
Yeah, and you should also watch Fire Walk with Me.
Yeah.
David Lynch has been said on record that you probably want to watch Fire Walk with Me before you watch the new season.
I count that in season 2 in my head, even though I know I probably shouldn't. That's where I count it.
Yeah, it's in canon, so
It's in canon.
Exactly.
Whoop, whoop, whoop. Sorry, I couldn't help it.
I know, it's all good. So yeah, I think this is a good time to sort of segue into the interview. So I had a fantastic chat with Aiden and Lindsay from the Bickering Peaks podcast. So they're awesome. I cannot thank them enough for coming on the show and really chatting all things Twin Peaks. And it was, it was a really cool chat that we had. So I think without further ado, we will jump into that conversation. Hey everyone, and we are here. We are talking to Aiden and Lindsay from the Bickering Peaks podcast.
Hey.
Hello.
How are you? Oh, sorry. How are you?
I am doing very good, actually. We are launching season 3 of the It's Canon podcast, and, we are changing up the format just a little bit. We are expanding what we talk about. So, I wanted to talk about something that's very, very passionate, that I'm very passionate about, and that is Twin Peaks. I have made many Twin Peaks references on the show. One of our episodes is actually called something about Twin Peaks or something along those lines, just because I kept talking about the show, tried getting Kyle and Tyler watching it, and it's with the revival or coming, it's no better time to just chat Twin Peaks.
Absolutely.
Yeah, agree.
And I figured, one thing that I do pride myself on with the It's Canon podcast is reaching out to other podcasts, family members, and having a chat with them, especially when it involves something as awesome as Twin Peaks. And let's keep it Canadiana. So,
there you go.
So Aiden, Lindsay, tell us a little about yourself. Tell us about the Bickering Peaks podcast.
Well, Aiden and I, we started the podcast in about October 2016 when the Secret History of Twin Peaks came out, and we thought this was something we wanted to talk about. And there are so many Twin Peaks podcasts out there. We thought we'll just throw our hat in the ring and see what goes, see what happens. And we've both been fans for about almost 10 years, I'd say, 7 or 8 years now. And we're married, obviously, and we kind of went from there. I started in with the show, and then I showed it to Aiden, and he became obsessed with the show. And then the podcast.
Yes, yeah. So the podcast is basically us talking back and forth about the show. We recap the episodes and then provide some analysis and critique, and we bicker a little bit because we approach it slightly differently, and so we like to discuss those opposing viewpoints at times.
Yeah.
Is that politically correct enough for you?
I think that's totally fine.
Fight.
And as you mentioned, we're both from Canada. We live in Edmonton, and we've just only been doing the podcast for about 6 months now.
Yeah, since October. So yeah.
That's awesome.
But having a blast with it, so yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, there's just something really awesome about podcasting and just getting your views out there, especially when you're so passionate about something. That's really why I started the It's Canon podcast and comic books, because, I've had a passion for my entire life, and it was one of those things where my best friend Mike and I, we would sit down drunk, chat, and say, we should record ourselves. We'd be hilarious. But yeah, so, just podcast away, and here we are.
Yeah.
So Twin Peaks. So you mentioned that you've been a fan for about 10 years.
Right.
I can honestly say that I'm 31, and I have some memories of the show when it originally aired.
Yeah.
One thing you have to realize is that my parents were either the best parents in the world or the worst parents in the world, as they let me watch anything I wanted. Basically, whatever my brother was watching, I would watch, whether that be The Exorcist when I was 5 years old, or, whatever. So I do have some memories of watching the original run of Twin Peaks. So it was something that I always had in me, in the sense of, that sounded like I have Bob or something. It was just something that, carried on. And then when Netflix, the Canadian Netflix, had Twin Peaks. I'd say like 5 or so years ago, maybe a little less. I just caught on, and I'm like, you know what? I gotta rewatch the show from beginning to end, and that's when the obsession really started. And it was just I couldn't. It was the first show that I truly binge watched. I think I watched all 30 episodes in about 5 days. It was
awesome.
It was pathetic, sad, and
No,
awesome
that's
all at
great.
once.
That's how I did it.
Yeah, Lindsay has almost the exact same story. You also saw it a little bit as a kid, right?
I did. My parents, I watched the first season hiding behind the couch while my parents watched it, and they didn't know I was there. Literally, they didn't know until we started the podcast 6 months ago, so that's when I told them. So like you, it was like part of me in there, but I was so scared of it, I avoided it until about 2010, I think, is when I watched it. And I binged it in like 5 days. So it's just like it gets in you and you can't, it doesn't let go, right?
Exactly. And I love it. I absolutely love it. There's just so much that we can honestly just chat about, and it's really hard to really pinpoint what it is about Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I've really noticed, and especially I'd say this week, and I'm sure the week coming up is going to be absolutely insane. It's just the cultural significance of Twin Peaks. The one thing that keeps coming up in all of my reading and research is, it changed TV. TV
Right.
in the late 80s, early 90s was pretty much a joke medium. You had, sitcoms, when Full House and things like that is, what people are watching on TV. A lot of people were saying TV is just, it is what it is. You keep it in the background, but it doesn't mean anything. But when Frost and Lynch took Twin Peaks and put it in the air, it became an art form. TV was actually, it meant something. It meant more than, just some mindless drone watching.
Right.
And for me, like, for that's so huge, because now you take a look at how we watch TV and binge watch TV, and shows like Breaking Bad and The Sopranos and shows like that. They just, every time I watch a show and something happens, I'm like, oh, that's for sure. That's some form of a Twin Peaks reference right there. And yeah, it's just something that I'm pretty sure I annoy some of my friends every time like we watch a show together. And just the fact that you can watch a show together, like the fact that there were Twin Peaks parties and viewing parties and things like that. It's just to me, it's amazing that one show, and especially, that pilot episode, and I would have to say that famous line at the very beginning of the show when we first see Laura's body, and then it changed everything. And for me, that's really it's fascinating that you can pinpoint one TV show that changes so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like I actually read something that Mark Frost has said, that he doesn't think that it changed television, that it changed television audiences. And I think that's really interesting too, because we started to demand more from our TV shows as a result of shows like Twin Peaks and the shows that came after it. Like we want something that we can kind of fall into and get wrapped up in, and that there's a mystery at the end of it or something to figure out. It's changed the way that television is made, and it's changed the way that television audiences respond to television shows, which I think is really great.
Yeah,
and it's interesting that they even picked up on this in the promotion of season 3. They released that trailer a couple weeks ago, saying like before there was Breaking Bad and all these other kind of classic golden era shows, there was the girl wrapped in plastic, right? So that's I think they're aware of it. I don't think Frost and Lynch are necessarily they care that much. They just did their thing, but. It's definitely a huge impact.
Exactly, and I when I watched that, I was clapping. I found myself clapping watching that, because it's like, it's so true.
Yes.
And it was like really, I wish I was a little older so that I can, recall those times better. But I would have to say, and any of our listeners can correct me if I'm wrong, but it was the first show that really had that water cooler effect. The next day you just chat about it at the water cooler, saying, "Did you watch Twin Peaks last night?"
Yeah. What happened? What do you think that means?
Exactly.
Or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly, because I find myself doing that, with shows like Game of Thrones and whatnot. I even remember doing that when The Sopranos was coming out. And yeah, it was just it's just absolutely amazing that just one show can do so much to influence absolutely everything from.
Yeah.
And it for me is it's just awesome. So one thing that I absolutely love about Twin Peaks is the fact that, you know, for me it means a lot. It's by far my favorite show. And I've made it as sort of a life goal to introduce as many people to Twin Peaks as possible.
Excellent. That is a great goal.
That is also Lindsay's life goal. That's true.
And
I love this.
And anytime I tell someone to watch Twin Peaks, I tell them you have to watch until episode 3. You know, The Dream. After that, they're hooked. The one person that I did not tell this to, they quit and they stopped watching, and I couldn't get them back on it.
Oh no!
Exactly.
It's interesting because Lindsay always says that episode 3 is like a make and break point.
Yeah, it's like if you're not hooked by Rocks and Bottles and the dream sequence, then you probably won't be. But most people are, right?
Exactly. And yeah, for me that's it. It's Even my one of my close friends, I told her, listen, you have to watch this show. This show means a lot to me. If you don't like this show, we cannot be friends.
Oh, wow. Did she like it?
Thank God.
Okay, excellent, fantastic.
Exactly. She's as obsessed with Twin Peaks now as me, and it's been she's only been watching it for a year.
Oh wow.
Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome.
That's the other thing about it is that it rewards rewatching. Like you say, like only been watching it for a year. That it takes a week, right? But you can keep coming back and like finding new things and enjoying it again. And especially when you get into like the mythology stuff, and you add in Fire Walk with Me and all that, and it just gets there's so much there to like analyze, and there's all the fan theories and everything that you can read about. Like it really extends beyond just the 29 episodes or whatever it is. So.
Yeah, the original 30-hour run. It's just crazy that 30 hours can mean so much to us.
It's insane when you think about how little there was. I mean, 8 episodes in the first season, 22 in the second, and it's sustained for 25 plus years now. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, I don't think that we will ever see a show like this, no matter how popular a show is. You take your Sex and the Cities, you take your Sopranos, you take your Game of Thrones. We're going to not be talking about those shows in 10, 15 years, but we will still be talking about the girl wrapped in plastic.
Yes, exactly.
Here we are 26 years later, just waiting for season 3, anxiously waiting.
Yes.
I do have one question. Are you having a viewing party?
We aren't. It's just going to be the two of us. I think for at least for that the first time that we watch it, because I think there'd be too much talking.
Exactly.
If there were people there, we just want to zone in. We're going to like unplug the phones and disconnect we can disconnect the Wi-Fi, but shut the windows, lock the doors. We're just like we're going to zone in. So.
Yep. Exactly. One thing that I will be adding to the show notes is the various places that you can watch the revival. I've been getting a lot of questions, people in Canada, we don't get Showtime, where can we watch it? And I'm like, you can watch it on Crave or TMN. Right. So, I'm going to be promoting it as much as humanly possible this week.
Fantastic.
So, let's start talking about the show a little more.
Yeah.
For me, really, like I said, it captivated me right away. There was no waiting till episode 3. There was just something about the everything from the script to the character building to everything in that pilot just got me right away. And I truly became a Lynchian right there and then, because I will say that prior to my rewatch, and when I mean rewatch, I mean like 5-6 years ago or whenever that was, I never watched Lost Highway or Blue Velvet or anything like that. Okay. So, Twin Peaks was my first real, well, apart from Dune, Twin Peaks was my first real, David Lynch work that I saw. And it just, it was just so significant just because, like, right away, for me, it was really the characters that drew me in. So, what was it for you that got you?
I think honestly, I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot here, but I think honestly it is the characters. It's the way that they were introduced, and I always say that it's maybe the best introductions for an ensemble cast that I've ever seen in television. It's just every main character had a significant thing to do in that pilot episode, and the way that they reacted to Laura's death is how we were introduced to them, which is so masterful because it keeps Laura central. Mm-hmm. While also introducing the people who have been affected by her death, and who are going to be involved in finding out who murdered her. And also, they're all suspects, right? Like, they all potentially could be suspects. So right away, there's mystery and there's intrigue, and there's an emotional connection that you get because you've been with them as they hear about Laura's death, and so I mean that right away it just drew me right in.
I remember also, like, because you're going through the suspects as the show starts, and right away you're like, oh, Bobby did it for sure, because he's the boyfriend, and he doesn't have an alibi, and he was seen with her last and everything. And then they get rid of that it's like the first 45 minutes it's gone, and you're like, okay, well, who's left? And then you realize, well, everyone's left. There's
James,
all these suspects,
and there's Josie, and there's
Leo, and everybody, and it's just it doesn't stop, and that was really exciting for me because it has that feel of a procedural crime drama, but it's not. And
it upends the expectations, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that was really, that was awesome for the pilot for sure. Although I think the dream sequence did get me personally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I remember watching that and being like, just visually it was so stunning. I was like, this feels like a movie.
Yeah.
And it was TV, and so it was just, that really caught me.
And I think the visual thing too is you can't not talk about Lynch's visual style, right? Mm-hmm. So I mean, that one shot in the pilot where he follows the coiled phone cord down after Sarah's dropped the phone, and it's such a long lingering shot, and he does that all the time throughout the series. Whenever he's directing, there's always these long shots that are just so odd for television that you can't help but be captivated by it. It's very cinematic, and I think that's the other thing that's so special about Twin Peaks is that you have this director who comes in from the world of film. To do something like this on television was unheard of at the time, and so that in itself made it instantly watchable, I think.
Yeah, and for me it was the shot in the pilot that really captivated me and really made me feel like this was a movie, was the shot when Sarah walks upstairs and we just get that long paused scene of looking upwards into the staircase and seeing the fan just slowly go, and to me that was just it was so creepy on so many levels, and just so awesome to see. Thinking back that this was on TV in the in the late 80s, early 90s. Like this is crazy.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, and for me in terms of character, my favorite character, especially to start, and the person I wanted to know more about was Laura. And it was just, I think it was everyone's reaction to her death. It was like, I need to know more. And they were able to build this whole character out of a dead girl.
Yeah.
And for me, that was just crazy. And then, but then it changes because it's like, oh, she's this perfect girl, yada, 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 probably, birds get her dressed in the morning, yada, yada, yada. And then right away we find out, wait a minute, she's not as good as everyone thinks she is. I need to know more.
Yeah, and the whole thing with upending those expectations. It's like, you think this character from hearing about her, seeing her homecoming portrait, and you think her because everybody knows someone like that. We went to high school with them or whatever. But then you find out, well, she was into cocaine, and she was a prostitute, and she had this whole sordid underbelly, I guess. Mm-hmm. Which is, again, another very Lynchian thing, is to have this surface look, and then underneath it is to have all this rot, and yeah, it completely draws you in. And you're absolutely right that Laura is such a captivating character, and she's on screen in the pilot for 5 minutes, maybe, not even.
Yeah, just in the videotape sequence.
Yeah, and her body, she's really a non-entity, but she's so present. It's so fascinating.
Exactly, and I think it was the first real example of you know, when people talk about comic books, specifically Batman, people say Gotham City is a character. You know, the city of Gotham, Gotham this, Gotham that. You know, they personify Gotham to the point where you kind of feel like it is a person within this grander universe. And I feel that that's, you know, kind of taken from what Mark Frost and David Lynch created in Twin Peaks, where Twin Peaks to me is a part of the cast. It is a major character. There's something about that town that, you know, makes it amazing. That makes the show what it is.
Yeah, it's the way that it was filmed, the way that they used real locations. It feels like a lived-in town. It's not on a soundstage. I mean, later episodes they did build sound stages, obviously, but that first pilot, or the pilot episode, it's all North Bend and Snoqualmie, Washington, Everett, Washington. They filmed it in places that felt real because they were real, and that's just, I mean,
yeah, it contributes so much to building that feel of the town. And yeah, and then the characters really fill it in, right? Like these feel like characters that you would find in the Pacific Northwest, right? And it's so just the interplay between those really heightens the whole feel of that town as a character.
The other interesting thing is I read somewhere that originally the script was going to be set, or the pilot and the series was going to be set in North Dakota, I think, or something. Yeah. And just imagining this show set anywhere else feels wrong.
It does.
And I think that's kind of a testament to, I mean, maybe it's just because this is what we know, but I just don't feel that it would have the same effect if we didn't have huge Douglas firs and, you know, foghorns blowing in the distance and logging trucks everywhere and the Twin Peaks, you know, like Blue Pine Mountain and Whitetail Mountain. Like it wouldn't be the same show.
Exactly. Well, we for sure wouldn't get some of Dale Cooper's famous lines of, you know, the trees. I need to know what type of trees these are, or ducks. You know,
right,
things like
exactly.
That. And that really added to it, in my opinion. It was just the way that they integrated the surroundings, and whether it was on a soundstage or on set for the pilot, or on location for the pilot, it created this aura of just something bigger than it really is. That you know the owls really aren't what they seem, and that's really one of the things that has always captivated me. And you know, reading comic books and the way that they talk about Gotham City and things like that, I relate that back to Twin Peaks. So, you know, I feel like my entire life can go back to Twin Peaks in some shape, way, or form.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
But yeah, in terms of characters, you know, there were a lot of characters, and like we had already mentioned, the ensemble cast was introduced brilliantly, and for the most part, you know, we had the characters who we kind of knew were the quote-unquote stars of the show, but every character sort of meant something really important to the ongoing saga of Twin Peaks. Which character is your favorite? And I know this is probably like one of the hardest questions that, you know, you can answer, but
oh boy,
yeah.
Well,
I'm pointing at you first because I can't.
There are so many, and there's. I mean, obviously Dale Cooper is up there because he's your entrance into the town. You come with him in the car into town, like he's your guide, right? And he's just such a captivating character, right?
He's just so fun and positive and just engaging, and yet like he has this kind of weird gleeful streak when it comes to the macabre stuff. So it's he's great, of course. You really like Audrey.
I love Audrey Horne. I think Audrey Horne she's definitely my favorite female character. I just think it's so rare to find a woman on screen, a female character who is well-rounded like that and has such depth to her. I always felt very bitter that her season 2 storyline kind of fell off a little bit, and she lost her investigative spirit and became just another employee at Horn Industries, I guess. But she's great.
Yeah. And I really like Catherine on a similar kind of note. Catherine Martell is interesting because, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the Toji Mura storyline in season 2, but I mean, Catherine was she was kind of she was a badass character who yet she had this kind of interesting backstory with her husband Pete and everything, and I don't know, I love the way she played that character, especially Piper Laurie was amazing in that role. I thought same with Ben Horne.
Yeah.
Richard Bramer just did an amazing job with him. So I just love watching scenes with him, regardless, even though he's a jerk and, a terrible businessman. I love just watching him on screen.
Yeah.
Same with Leland Palmer. You gotta give props to Ray Wise for playing Leland Palmer so well. He's an absolute joy to watch on screen. So.
Oh yeah. My friend.
Who's your favorite character?
Who's your favorite?
Do you have a favorite?
I do, and it's by far Audrey. It's just everything about her, and it's exactly like you said. I wish her season 2 storyline wasn't there. It really changed her, really diminished her. But I'd say, when you take a look at the writing, there's a lot of stereotypes in this show. A lot of these things would probably not make it to air nowadays. But I just found that, here we are in the early 90s, and you have a character as strong as Audrey, who, for the most part, she doesn't rely on Dale Cooper. She doesn't... She does things on her own to prove to him that, hey, I can do this. But she's at no point, well, maybe some, but overall, she is not this damsel in distress. And seeing a character like that written so long ago that, today you're just starting to get characters like that. It's just it's a true testament to what that show and is and was and continues to be. So for me, it was really Audrey who made that show just as awesome as it really is. And obviously, Dale Cooper, just him being as eccentric as he is. And Ray Wise, Leland. My friend, she said that, her favorite character was Leland all the way up until she watched Firewalk with Me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That would definitely change people's opinion, though, if they really liked him. And even knowing how things go in the series, watching the film is a tough pill to swallow, for sure.
Yes, it is, to say the least. So, by far, Audrey is, I would say, my favorite character. And I just cannot wait to see sort of, where she is, what she's doing, what our homegirl has been up to these past 25 years.
So true.
No kidding.
God. Can't wait.
The mind boggles. We don't have to wait much longer now, so.
Yeah.
I feel like I've been just saying, it's, a year away, it's 9 months away, it's 6 months away, and now it's like, it's 1 week away.
I know.
Lindsay, how long have you had your countdown timer on your phone
Oh,
going?
it's been a long time. It's been months that I've had a countdown time. Well, since they announced it in January.
Billions of seconds.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So we talked about our favorite characters. Now let's go the other direction. Our least favorite character.
Huh.
That's...
It's not really though, because there's all those season 2 characters that jump in and you're like, oh, there's
What are you
there's
doing
the Evelyn
here?
Marshes, there's
Yes.
the little Nickies, even Dick Tremaine. As much as I enjoy Dick Tremaine, he's not really necessary in a lot of cases. Those kind of add-on characters who, again, and we said this in our podcast once, is that a lot of the season 2 add-on characters, they don't feel like they belong in Twin Peaks because they have no connection to Laura.
Mm-hmm.
They're all just kind of, they were in the town, but they weren't central to the
Laura's
trauma
story.
of Laura getting murdered. So it always feels like they're interlopers in this story that's really kind of Laura's story.
It's really funny that you say that, because one thing, that we know that I will remind our audience is that David Lynch did not ever want to really reveal who killed Laura Palmer.
Right.
And for me, what you just said about these characters didn't have a connection to Laura. So I feel like they were going on something there where, we like these characters because of how they interacted or how they knew Laura.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of these characters who had nothing to do with Laura were like, whatever. So, that was a really interesting point that you brought up there. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of it makes it like the stakes aren't as high, even if you're dealing with something as traumatic as the Little Nicky storyline on its own. If it were in another show, you've got this kid who's an orphan and there's all this tragedy in his life, but it just doesn't fit with Laura's story in any way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so it kind of feels like it's diminished and the stakes are dropped, so you can't feel invested in it the same way that you could about literally any of the other characters that interacted with Laura.
I think the worst, the one that everybody kind of harps on the most is the Evelyn Marsh storyline, because it's not even in Twin Peaks.
Right.
Like James leaves town to meet this woman and then interacts with her in a really kind of very soapy kind of storyline for a couple episodes, and you're just like, this has nothing to do with Twin Peaks.
It has nothing to do with anything.
With anything. It's just James off on some little side adventure, and yeah, it's really poorly written, and the acting isn't great, so it's really terrible to watch as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, just a struggle.
For me, anything with James is just a struggle to watch. He is by far my least favorite character, like by far. Everything about him, even from the pilot, I just wanted to walk up to him and punch him in the nose.
That's so funny because we're releasing a bunch of episodes about Fire Walk with Me this week, and we actually introduced some new people to the show by watching Fire Walk with Me first.
Oh.
And they were both like, oh, James is awesome. James is like the nice guy who's like kind of a badass and everything.
And Laura
like,
treats him so poorly, and what is he doing with her?
Poor James. And we're like, what the hell are you talking about?
Poor James.
Who the hell is
poor
this?
James.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, everything. I just can't. I'm getting worked up right now. I just want to punch him right now. Just everything about him. He's such a. I feel like he's so. I don't know. I think the acting didn't help, and I don't know whether it was just the character that he was given, or there was just something about him throughout the show. You know, the facial expressions, the horrible montage, and with him and Maddie, and yeah, that all of that just hurt me so much.
It's true, and I think Aiden has brought this up, that it seems like he does, James Marshall, the actor who played James Hurley, really did his best work in the episodes that David Lynch directed. And I think James Marshall has said himself that he only really understood the character fully when he did Fire Walk with Me. And I do think that his portrayal of James in Fire Walk with Me is miles and away better than what he did in the TV series. And I think it just comes from, I really do think the writing didn't help with having so many different writers and so many different directors and no real driving force behind the show. That hurt a lot of things, but it hurt characters like James a lot. So when you get David Lynch back behind the camera, I mean, these next 18 hours that we're going to get are all David Lynch, all Mark Frost. So I feel like we're going to get the best possible performances and the best possible story that we didn't get in season 1 and 2. Well, season 1 we did, but season 2 for sure.
Yeah. Although, to be fair, I think you're right. James is still like he plays this badass biker, but he's not. He's kind of a wuss, and he just gets tossed around. I don't know. He's just I don't really like him.
I don't feel sorry for him. I can't with him. And I'm prove me wrong. Prove me wrong.
Yeah, we'll see what season 3 has.
Exactly.
That'll be cool. Yeah,
I'm really excited to just see just seeing what these people have been up to, and and with so much time passing, are they still? It'll just be interesting to see the impact that Laura's death still has on these people.
Yes.
Because. When I was in high school, we all had that friend who passed away when we were younger, and it impacts us. So it'll be interesting to see how that carries on into this show and into the new season, and sort of seeing where they can go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The other thing that I always loved about the show was just the music. It just, I can honestly listen to that soundtrack in the background as I'm working over and over and over. There's just something so soothing about it. Even the, when we have the synthesizers going, when you know that something eerie is about to happen or something mysterious is happening, even that music to me is awesome.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about other characters, the music is totally a character in the show, and I cannot imagine anybody else scoring any of David Lynch's films other than Angelo Badalamenti, because he's just got this magical touch, and he just makes it come alive, and it just fits so well.
It just syncs with David Lynch's style that the two of them, they do great work together.
Yeah,
for sure.
Have you guys ever listened to David Lynch's CDs?
Yes, I have. I don't know.
No, I haven't. No.
It's actually really, really good.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's like I don't even know how you describe it or what genre it would fit in, but
It's Twin Peaks.
yeah, it is. That's exactly it. It's like Twin Peaks. You can't put it in a box. You can't put David Lynch's music in a box either. So.
Exactly. So I just put it all under Twin Peaks. It's a Twin Peaks genre.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, it's really cool, and the music for me is really. I always really liked it. I don't know why, but I have this weird obsession with soundtracks and scores when it comes to movies. Like, it plays such an important part, and I don't think people really truly realize how important it is until you think of, the most dramatic scenes in movies with a different song, and it just doesn't fit. So kudos there when it comes to the soundtrack, and that's actually another thing that I'm going to be really interested to hearing is, where are they going to go with this soundtrack? How different is it going to be? And with that said, go ahead.
They have all those they have all those other like cast members that are musicians as well in season 3.
And Sky Ferreira,
Trent Reznor's doing stuff. Like there's all sorts of interesting musicians who are going to be part of the show. So whether they play a similar role to how Julie Cruz did in season 1 and 2, where it was kind of like the Roadhouse Band, or if it's going to be something totally different, or if it's going to be like the Pink Room in Fire Walk with Me. Yeah. Like there's just so much that could happen. It'll be really interesting to see.
Yeah, exactly. And it's there's just so many possibilities with such a huge cast. What is it, like 300?
Yeah, darn near, yeah.
It's something absolutely insane. And I made the huge mistake of going on IMDb and seeing how many episodes people are in for, and just like, oh, that hurt.
Don't worry. I think IMDb is notoriously bad for miscrediting people. Until the episodes have aired, don't trust anything they say. This is what I've been told.
That's what I'm going on. That's honestly what I'm going on.
Yep.
The other thing that always intrigued me about the show is it kind of feels lost in time. We know that it takes place in 1989 / 1990, depending on when David Lynch felt like it should. But it always had that sort of 50s feel to it, that 80s feel to it, that, and to me it'll be very interesting to sort of see in the revival how they handle that, whether they somehow transform Twin Peaks, through time and space and it's updated, or will it still have that sort of, I don't even want to say retro feel, but this like, other universe, Earth 518 feel to it.
Right. Mm-hmm. It's funny because another podcast team that we interact with quite often, they're great, the Diane podcast, they call it the 80s 50s. That's what the original series had, because it had that, it's like the 1980s but 1950s, so it's really cool. Mm-hmm. And then how is that going to translate to now? Like, people are worried. They're like, oh, are they going to have cell phones? Do they even have a cell phone tower in Twin Peaks? Do they have the internet? So all of these things come up. And you got to wonder, like, is it going to be that updated, or are they just going to have progressed? Like, did the 1980s just hit in Twin Peaks? Like, is that what we're going to see?
Yeah, exactly.
I doubt it, but I think it's interesting to see how that's going to.
Well, and how it's going to be filmed too, because like one of the things we noticed, like they've released a couple trailers and stuff, and obviously it's shot in digital now and it's high def and everything. Whereas the original TV had a very limited, even color palette was very, very small. You couldn't do real blacks or anything like that, right? So there's all these technical limitations to how Twin Peaks was filmed and shown originally, and that's not going to exist now. So it's gonna feel like a movie because that's how David Lynch shot it, as an 18-hour feature. But is it part of what made the 80s 50s feel work is that TV really didn't change much between the 50s and the 80s. Yep. So the technology was kind of the same, and so it always, you could make the 50s feel like it was still appropriate in the 80s. Yeah. But if everything's shot like it's 2017, are you going to be able to have that retro feel still? I mean, I'm sure David Lynch would be able to do it if anybody could, but it'll be interesting to see how that shakes down too.
But I think the music will play a big part in it, because they released it's not the soundtrack, but it's somebody who is featured on the soundtrack, and they won't even say which songs of his are going to be on the soundtrack. But listening to his album, this is Johnny Jewel, just released an album called Windswept, and if you listen to it, it feels like kind of a mashup of like a Stranger Things vibe, but
Yes.
also Twin Peaks,
Yep.
which is interesting because Stranger Things kind of borrowed a lot from Twin Peaks and other shows from that time period. So it just feels like I think we're going to see a little bit of an update, but I think we're still going to get some kind of a retro feel to it.
Yeah.
Or a vintage feel, maybe. I don't know
Yeah.
how to put it, but
I felt,
it's going to be great, fascinating.
yeah, I felt the same when I was listening to those songs, and then I kept playing a game with myself of, which of these songs are going to actually be in the show for 10 seconds.
Right, exactly.
And then
Kind
as
of
I
a
was
neat thought experiment.
exactly, and then as I was doing them, like, I need to do something else right now. So what did I do? I started rereading The Secret Diary of Laura Palmer.
Oh, right
yeah.
on, yeah.
Yeah,
So good.
yeah, we were
Yeah.
talking about that earlier in the week, which we'll touch on in a little bit.
For sure.
So going back to that 50s, 80s, motif. One thing that I really hope that does carry on, and it's really because I find that anytime that anything happy was happening, or anything that not murderous, we had that very 50s feel to it. Which when
Right.
you think about the audience that was watching it, it was a very nostalgic feeling to them. Everything was happy, everything was go lucky, nothing bad can happen in the 50s,
Right.
except for nuclear war. But but it was very happy. And then the 80s feel I always found so, like I mentioned earlier when I was talking about the music, that synth feeling or that synthesizer going on, you knew Bob was lurking or something was going on, and that was that 80s feel, like, how messed up the world is today,
Right.
type thing. So it'll be very interesting to sort of see how they do that moving forward with this season. It's sort of like, are we going to keep that, or are we going to try to update it where we kind of have like, a 90s / today type thing. It'll be really
Right.
cool, and I'm really looking forward to that. And and I think that's one of the major reasons why we're not getting a lot of anything out of the new season, is because they're trying
Right.
to keep everything so secret, and rightfully so. I feel like they've even the past week or so, 2 weeks, they've released too much.
Yeah, it feels like a lot in the last little while. Like every day something new.
But even
This is
then,
crazy because there's almost nothing. But yeah, you're right. It does feel that way.
yeah, but even then, it's like I do remember reading an article, I think about a year ago, 6 months ago, where they were saying, they filmed a lot of short films that will be used possibly for trailers. So we don't know
Right.
whether these things are going to be in the actual show or not.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, which is crazy. I mean, it's the only show that I can think of where something like that is even possible, right? Where
Well, where
you
they
could-
purposely go out of their way to,
Yeah.
like, even like, Game of Thrones does, they don't release many spoilers or anything like that, but they promo the show still. Like, they'll show new footage as part of the promos and stuff, whereas, this is a week away and we've seen like maybe total a minute of footage. Like it's spliced into 40 different clips. Like it's very abnormal by comparison to anything.
But it's still very Twin Peaks. Like it feels fitting for this kind of a show. So.
Exactly. Yeah, no, and that's exactly it. It's really cool to see, and again, it'll be very interesting to sort of see how time plays a key role into this revival, music and musically and just really sort of atmospherically and whatnot. It'll be very cool to sort of see where we go with that. So, season one was season one. Season one is by far probably the greatest 8 hours or 9 hours of TV that a person can ask for.
Yep.
Even the cheesiest of parts was so captivating and really, really good. So, for me, one of my favorite scenes and the entire show was Cooper's bottle or rock throwing part, and his whole thing about Tibet. I'm like, where is he going with this? Like, what is this guy on? And actually,
he's high on life.
Yes.
That's his thing.
And coffee.
And coffee. And one of my friends actually made this very interesting remark when we were watching it together. He said that, this Dale Cooper guy, he's way too positive. There's something up with him. I just gave him a look, and it was just like, interesting.
That's so funny.
Yeah, because it's something we've talked about a bit too. Is that like he really does try to be pure good. Like he's lawful good. He is straightforward. That's how he wants to operate. But of course, that's kind of an unattainable standard, right? So Yeah, there's always that. I mean, like, was it you who thought Cooper killed Laura initially? Or,
No, I think it was just when the show was initially airing, there were polls everywhere, and it was
right.
one TV station or a news hour or something that had a poll, and Cooper was on the list. Like, a lot of people thought that he killed Laura.
Higher than Leland.
Yeah.
Like, it was crazy. So, like, yeah, there's something sinister almost about that unending positivity, right?
Yeah.
So.
And then this same friend was like, it was a dad. It's always the dad.
Before he knew,
before he knew. Like, we were watching, I
Yeah.
think we were on episode 3 or 4, and he's like, it was the dad. He's acting too crazy.
Man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't see that twist coming.
No, neither did I, so.
No, exactly. I don't think many people did, and if people did, I call bullshit.
Yeah, right, exactly.
But I think this friend was just more joking than anything else. But yeah, it was, it's like, well, you just spoiled the entire good part of the show for you. So yeah, going back to what I was saying, that first season was just so good. And then I know that, with with Lynch leaving especially, it just really hurt the dynamic of that second season. And I felt like they were really just scrambling and throwing shit at the wall and seeing what stuck. And it's a real shame because there were parts of that second half of the second season that I really did like. And I felt like they were finally starting to go somewhere and find its groove again. But by that point, the general audience just didn't give a crap anymore. So really, like, what are your thoughts on the David Lynch-less part of the show?
Well, I mean, Aiden has described it as having the highest highs and the lowest lows, because there are some really great moments. I think, some of the things, even some of the things that aren't really great could have been really great. You can see where they were, like Wyndham Earl. A lot of people aren't really keen on Wyndham Earl.
I love that.
But I think that he's still could have been a good villain, and I can see where they were going with it. It's just the execution was maybe off a little bit.
Yeah, that's kind of a lot of the problem is like there's potential there, and then just the execution in one way or another was let down. And a lot of it, like, we're both like amateur writers, so we blame a lot of it on kind of the haphazard writing that kind of took place, because plot lines seem to meander and characters are a little listless, or they change abruptly, like Audrey did in season 2, and Bobby with becoming Ben Horn's assistant, and Ben Horn with the whole Civil War story.
Oh my God!
Like, there's so much of that kind of fluff and looseness to the writing that we felt that's where a lot of it really suffered. Because, but I mean, I think at the end, and I've said this in our podcast too, is that this was a Lynch Frost world that was built, and as soon as other directors and other writers came in and they were trying to copy it, after a while, the original core vision was lost, and it's not until the last episode, which David Lynch did direct,
and Mark Frost wrote,
that you really get back into the feel, and you're like, wow, this is the Twin Peaks that I fell in love with originally.
And that's exactly it. You can tell that they were back by that very last episode, because it was like, oh, it actually makes no sense. Which
yes,
like,
exactly.
What's going on here? Type thing. So it was really. Yeah, it's a shame, really, and it's one of the ultimate what if type things for me when it comes to TV. Like, what if ABC never pressured David Lynch into solving the whodunit?
Right.
What if it went into a season 3? There's so many what ifs with the show, but as they say, everything happens for a reason, and here we are, 26 years later, about to watch season 3. Yeah. Which is going
Who would have thought? Who would have thought that this was going to happen? I remember when we first started watching it and being so depressed at the end, like, this was it. This was all we had. And then diving into the online world and meeting other people who were in the same boat but had been in that boat for much longer.
Yeah.
And just trying to keep it all together. So, and here we are, a week away from having brand new episodes. It's like a fever dream.
It really is. And I remember, it's, again, this is so sad, but I remember exactly where I was, what I was doing when I read on Twitter that they were going to have the revival.
Yep.
I was on a bus from my mom's to my going to my apartment, and I just so happened to be on Twitter, and then boom, I see, Twin Peaks is coming back, 2016, yada, yada, yada. And right away, I messaged one of my friends, my friend Julie, who is a huge Twin Peaks fan, and calls her living room the Red Room, and
that's awesome.
Her well, whatever. I don't care. Her Instagram handle is Bookhouse Girl. So
Nice.
yeah. So I remember just texting her right away and saying, "It's coming back." And yeah, it was one of those things where it's just like, I can't believe it. This is actually happening. And then the question started: who's going to be in it?
Yeah.
Who's going to be the new Bob? Is Bob going to be around? What happened to Cooper? It's like then all the questions. So it's been 4 years of me wondering these things.
Yeah, no kidding. And then when David Lynch stepped away from the project for a while, and you were wondering if it was even going to happen anymore, and that double blow, it was like ripping open a scab, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh no, what are you doing to us?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it was at that point that I realized that the fan community that exists for Twin Peaks is much more like a support group than any other fan community I've ever been a part of, because we all kind of feed into each other's, when we're having low moments, we could go and talk with these people and feel better because we were all in the same place, right?
Yep.
So I think that makes the Twin Peaks experience so much richer just because of the people that are fans of the show.
Exactly. I do not watch a show that I know was canceled before it properly ended. I can't do it. I've never been a fan of Firefly. For me, it was just a copy of a bunch of animes that were out at the time. But even a bunch of my friends were like, "Hey, this show is pretty good." I'm like, I might just give it a chance. But I was never actually able to do it, knowing that it never had its proper ending.
Right.
Even with the movie, I was like, whatever. But any show, for me, if it doesn't have a proper ending, I cannot watch it. But for whatever reason, Twin Peaks is the one show that, even if the revival wasn't happening, I would have been watching over and over and over and over. I probably watch it twice a year, to be honest.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do the same thing. I certainly do. So
Yeah.
it's just one of those shows, like Aiden said, it rewards rewatching, and there is so much more than just what's on screen.
Yeah.
There's the you can imagine that this world still exists and that there's still things happening in it, and you just you can't help but go there,
Yep. Because, when I'm having my morning coffee, I'm like, I wonder if Agent Cooper's having his morning coffee right now.
Right.
When I'm staring out into the moon, I wonder who's looking at this moon in Twin Peaks right now.
I don't think that's an odd thing at all. I think that is a very normal thing for a Twin Peaks fan to say. Now, non-Twin Peaks fans will look at us like we're nuts, but...
Yeah, exactly.
Cheers.
And the number of my listeners have gone down. Yeah, no, it's all good. It's all good. No, everyone knows how much of a fan of Twin Peaks I am. It's funny because, my one friend, she... the one who I got into Twin Peaks last year. It's funny because when we're out in public, we'll say, "Oh, this person looks like this character," and once we found a person who looks so much like Bob.
Oh God.
Yeah, he even had a denim jacket, which was just like,
oh no.
Yeah,
I would have had a heart attack.
Yep.
See Bob walking down the street towards you, you're like, ah.
Yeah, and then one time, I feel like such an asshole for saying this. There was this midget, a small person, and he looked exactly like Bob also, to the hair,
Really?
to the denim jacket. And it was like, oh, this is just like, can I just send a picture of you to David Lynch right now?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so random.
That is
Or
random.
people who I was talking to someone the other day who was standing next to someone literally missing their left arm. And it's a real person who actually literally lost their arm.
Mm-hmm.
But they couldn't help but make the connection to Twin Peaks.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And it's like a weird thing that you just internalize it, and you don't say it out loud, but you think it, right?
Yeah. Even yesterday, my friend thought that she saw Audrey. Well, because that's what we call her. We don't call anyone by the real names. It's like,
Right.
I swear I saw Audrey Horne last night.
That's so funny. That's so funny. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, it's like the one show where I don't actually call people by their real names. It's like,
Right.
it's Agent Cooper. It's not Kyle
Yes.
MacLachlan.
Yeah, exactly. It's like how David Lynch does it when he's directing. He calls them by their name, by their character names,
Yeah.
right? And so it just fits. And because they're cast so well too, I think that's the other thing is you can't imagine them, for better or for worse, because then you end up with typecasting these people as the characters that they played in that show once, but they are so perfectly cast that, of course, Sherilyn Fenn is Audrey Horne. Of course, Kyle MacLachlan is Agent Cooper. Like, no one else could play those roles. So, of course,
can't
that's
even
who
imagine anyone else playing those roles.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Yeah,
one of those,
no,
it's unheard of. No, it's sacrilegious.
Yes, exactly.
Even the Bobs and like the other accidental casting members, you know, like they just found Shelley Johnson, like, we'll make a new character for you. Like, like that kind of stuff is so awesome. And it's,
Yeah,
and I think it also goes to, you know, just the overall writing. It's like, you know, who better to play these characters than people who basically personify these characters? Like, these characters were written for these people.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, so it was just, it's that adds to the you know, awesomeness, for lack of a better word. It's Sunday, people. I'm not thinking right now.
You're in Twin Peaks mode, and your brain is all scrambled.
Exactly. I have a weird dream going on in my head right now. I have this sudden urge to lick a domino set.
Oh, yeah. Nice. Hank Jennings, yeah.
Oh, that was... Every time I watch that scene, it just creeps me out more and more.
I know.
It actually...
Don't put that in your mouth, Hank. Like, come on.
How many cast members and crew members have touched that one piece of domino?
Oh, you're asking for trouble.
Exactly. Season 2 really did take a hit, to say the least. But again, I go back to everything happens for a reason, and here we are. And, you know, to a certain extent, David Lynch was able to continue the world of Twin Peaks with Fire Walk with Me.
Yeah.
This is a very controversial thing when it comes to Twin Peakers, the Peakians. Because, you know, there are your group of people who say, you know, yes, this definitely is awesome, you know, this continues the story, yada, yada, yada. But there are those other people who said, this is way too dark. I can't, you know, this can't be in canon for me, yada. And, you know, what are your thoughts on Fire Walk with Me?
Well, I'm a huge fan. I'm definitely in the first category. I love it. I think the fact that it actually exposes Laura's story and all the really all the darkness that was there, it exposes it all, is just incredible. And I love the way it's filmed, and I love the dreaminess of it. And, you know, I love even the first third where, you know, what the hell does that have to do with anything? But it's, you know, the Teresa Banks investigation. I love all of it. And I think it's a really great, actually, finale to the series in some ways. I mean, you get, you know, it started with Laura's death and it ends with Laura's death. And it ends with Laura, you know, in the Red Room, you know, finding some sort of emotional redemption. And I think that's an amazing piece that was missing from the series. So I really love it. Lindsay's, you're a bit more on the fence-ish.
Well, no, I didn't like it when I first saw it because it was so dark, and I hate to use the word triggering, but it kind of, like, in the modern parlance, I guess you could call it that, because there were so many scenes that were so hard to watch. Like, my heart rate would go up and I would have to stop it because it was too intense.
Yeah.
And I get the same way when I read The Secret Diary of Laura Palmer. Like, it takes me a long time to read that book. I've read it twice only, and it's just so harrowing, right? So, but after a while, and then after showing it to Aiden, especially because he loved it from the beginning, and I kind of saw it through his eyes, and I started to look at it from that angle. I see it now that way, that it's a perfect ending for Laura's story. Like, she finds peace at the end, and you see her go through hell, literally, and then the ending just ends it. Like, I won't say that watching it made me feel like the series came to a complete end when I did see it for the first time, but there is some kind of end. So I get the feeling that David Lynch, when he made that film, he finished it, and that was where it would end, and it made sense to end it there.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm wrong because he's making more, but that's the other thing, is that it left it open for more too. Like, it's such a unique film in that way that there are so many different ways of looking at it. And then the whole question, like you mentioned, is it canon or it's not canon for me? It's such a unique thing in the Twin Peaks world to talk about canon anyway, because what is canon in Twin Peaks? There's the books and there's the movie and there's, so much that's
well, there's
going
contradictions within things.
Absolutely.
And then, it gets really messy.
Yeah.
So I think it invites you to interact with the series in a different way than maybe you might have if you just watched the series. Watching Fire Walk with Me, I think, is essential, even if it's really, really hard and you have to watch it in like 10 steps, like I did the first time. I still think it's like essential viewing for Twin Peaks fans. So.
Yeah, I agree 100%. For me, I'm in the first category where this is really, just like Aiden, this for me is the proper ending, and I felt like Laura did get her redemption, like literally going through hell, and at the very end, it's kind of like, oh, she's at peace. Thank God she's dead now. As bad as that sounds, like she doesn't have to go through what she's going through anymore, and you kind of feel happy in a really weird way that we have this dead teenager.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely
so
right.
True, yeah.
Yeah, so and the one thing I did want to talk about is like sort of, and we touch on it, is what's in canon versus what's not in canon.
Right.
For me, it's obviously the 30 hours of the show, the movie, and Secret Diary of Laura Palmer. For me, those are the three major in canon things. Everything else is nice to haves.
Yeah.
And they expand the universe, but for me, the actual in canon are those three things.
Right.
Would you agree?
I tend to think, I view the original medium, so the TV show and the movie, that's for me essential canon. That's where it is. The rest of it, I feel like, originally I probably would have thought that maybe they were just the inconsistencies that I saw in there were not necessarily non-canon, they were just mistakes. But then when the Secret History of Twin Peaks was released and there were deliberate inconsistencies put into the story, I started looking at those as maybe like alternative canon, if that's a word. Like maybe there's something else going on there. So I definitely take it as a whole now that more of it than I originally thought is canon. I would consider, if not strictly canon, then like coloring or flavor to the canon,
Yep.
Yeah, and I tend to agree. I think especially the Secret Diary of Laura Palmer is just so, it's really tough to read and it's really dark. And there's some inconsistencies with the series, which makes it kind of problematic from a canon standpoint, but it's illuminating Laura's character.
Yeah.
And I feel like that essence of it is canon, that this was the Laura, who wrote it again? What's her name?
Jennifer Lynch.
Jennifer Lynch, like she did an amazing job of capturing this really tortured young girl becoming a young woman who's been molested and doing drugs and prostitution and all like these terrible, harrowing stories of things that happened to her. That feel is really canon to me. And I think Cheryl Lee in Fire Walk with Me really channeled it and successfully portrayed that on screen.
She said that she carried around a copy of the Secret Diary with her when she was filming that, and to this day Cheryl Lee says when she sees people watching or reading that book, she feels like it's someone reading her diary. Like that's how closely associated that book is for her with Laura's story. So I absolutely think the Secret Diary is top notch and first among the ancillary novels and everything when it comes to canon.
And then the other one's My Life, My Tapes. One again, it has a similar kind of feel for me, like where it's explaining Cooper's character a little bit and his backstory, but there's even more inconsistencies, and it's just not as interesting for me. Even though there was a lot of stuff going on there, and it does kind of perhaps give a broader sense of Agent Cooper and how he's doomed to fail in love, and he has all these other problems that kind of keep recurring.
It
kind of adds a bit more to his character, but it's not
essential.
For me.
For me, I feel like it was kind of, it changed the way that his character really is, because again, I just want him to be this stand-up, quirky doofus that has this awesome bromance with Harry Truman.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and it does change that.
It complicates it, right?
Yeah,
to say the least. Yeah, and I think that goes to that second season where we find out that he isn't that perfect guy after all, and
no, that's true. And then Secret History is Like I'm listening to it again as an audiobook now, and it's great. I love what it does. But yeah, its relationship with canon is just so confusing because it's contradicts itself. It contradicts the TV show very directly at times. And I think we're only getting a very small piece of what it's supposed to be talking about because it's really a build up for season 3. So I think until we've seen season 3, it's going to be hard to figure out how it fits in.
Exactly. Oh, speaking of audiobooks, I am listening to the Secret Diary of Laura Palmer, and it's so much harder audio-wise.
Oh, I've only got about 45 minutes in. I had to stop. Like, I couldn't listen to it anymore.
It's unfreaking believable. It's just it's so creepy and just I don't know. It just makes you. It really brings you to the hell that she was going through.
Yes.
Just like those entries where my thighs were burning and yada yada yada. I'm like, number one, a 12-year-old girl writing about this is creepy on so many levels.
Yeah.
But then listening to it is just it's just heart-wrenching. It's just heart-wrenching.
It absolutely is. And this is where I have to say Cheryl Lee should have won all the awards for Fire Walk with Me and for doing the audiobook. Like, even as much as we've listened to, it's still like, what a tremendous actress to be able to go there and to fully embody that and to make you feel so much a part of it yourself as a listener or as a reader or a watcher or whatever. Like, it's insane. The effort that must have taken. I can't imagine it. She does such a great job.
Yeah, and I have a feeling that these next 18 hours it's gonna win all the awards. Like, realistically, like I'd be shocked if it doesn't pick up a bunch. Just for many reasons. The fact, I think nostalgia always plays a good part when it comes to these mainstream awards. But I feel like these characters, these actors, they've been playing these characters for on and off for how many years, and they get to go back and recreate the character now that they're so much older into what they've always thought. It's kind of like a do-over for some of them.
Yeah.
James.
Yeah, we'll see. Fingers crossed.
When he wins Best Supporting Actor.
He won't be winning a Tony anytime soon, that's for sure.
Oh, man.
So going into season 3, it's been said, people have been writing about it, and I think David Lynch even mentioned that, the main thing that people should watch is Fire Walk with Me.
Right.
And it really makes me wonder, like, are we going to be getting the expanded universe? Like, and by that I mean that first third of the movie where the whole Teresa Banks investigation happened. Is it going to feel more like that, where, it's not directly Laura Palmer, but there's still a relation to that? And it's just, I have so many questions, and I was just wondering sort of what you think about, that if we're being told watch Fire Walk with Me, what does that mean?
Right. Well, I think part of it is I think he's priming us to expect a tonal shift from the TV series, skewing it more towards what we experienced with Fire Walk with Me. So it's going to be a little bit darker. It's going to be like darker subject matter. It's going to be
filmed darker,
more darkly. And
yeah.
However, that sentence was very awkward. But then also, I think somehow they're going to tie back Laura's story. I mean, she's been dead for 25 years. How are they going to do that? I think that's, with her face being featured in promos along with Cooper's, for the longest time, those are the only two characters we saw. Mm-hmm. I think she has to be central again somehow. I think David Lynch loves Laura Palmer so much, he wouldn't make any more Twin Peaks if he couldn't bring her back somehow. Mm-hmm. So I think the final 7 days of her life is going to come back into play in some way.
Yeah.
How that is anybody's guess.
Yeah. There's all the mythology stuff too that was really amped up in Fire Walk with Me. I mean, there was all the extra Red Room scenes. There was the Philip Jeffries sequence, which, feels like it was just kind of dropped in the middle of Fire Walk with Me with David Bowie, but I mean, there's so much mythology building there that we just got like the slightest little hint at.
Yeah.
Same with the owl cave ring that was introduced
Yes.
in the film that had nothing, was not in the series at all.
And then it's all over the Secret History of Twin Peaks.
And
So,
the promos as well that
yeah.
Showtime has been releasing.
yeah, so I mean, it's like, I think that'll be really big too. They'll be expanding on that.
Yeah,
The mythology?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I really wish David Bowie was around to.
Oh, man. Me too.
Yeah.
I'm really sad about that, just because that one scene was just so out there, and it's like, what the fuck is going on right now? But I love it, you know. Like,
I know. I want to know more.
yeah, exactly. And then, you know, thankfully Dave Furr was able to film his scenes, and we'll be getting more of him and his smart-ass attitude. And
Yes, exactly.
but yeah, no, it's just it'll be very interesting to sort of see what like this mythology and sort of how all of this ties together.
Yeah.
And will it leave the door open for more? You know?
Right. That's the question.
Exactly.
I don't think anybody has closed the door on more at this point. So.
Well, yeah, even Lynch said so at that the panel,
Yeah.
whatever it was, and he said, never say never kind of thing. But
Yeah.
at the same time, I kind of hope there is, again, similar to Firewalk with Me, that sort of emotional conclusion at least. At least, I feel like if it's going to be Cooper's story and Cooper, finding his way out of the Red Room or something, that we get some sort of closure on that.
I just hope we don't end up with an ending like we did with season 2, the finale of season 2. Like, don't leave us with that again.
Not
please.
another cliffhanger. That would be the end of it, please.
I don't think I'll be able to wait another 25 years.
No,
No.
exactly.
Yeah. And then, watching all those promos, I have another friend who mentioned, what if this is all BS? What if we see some of these characters for like a couple minutes? I'm like, don't talk like that. What if
It's so true. But with a cast of, over 200, 250, however many it is, I mean...
Yeah, there's got to be some who have one line and walk off and you never see them again.
Like the
So-
Gilmore Girls
Who are
revival.
they? How are they going to play into it?
Yeah. Yeah,
So many questions.
I went through all these emotions when Gilmore Girls was about to start, so...
Right. Oh my gosh.
That's
Yeah,
right,
that was
yeah.
another one that had similar fan base, similar fan reaction. There's a lot of revivals that are coming back now
Exactly.
but none seem to reach the same fever pitch that I, in my opinion, is what's happening in Twin Peaks right now. So.
I agree 100%. Like, just, these Facebook groups, the podcast, everything, just social media in general is just, it's unreal seeing just the effect of Twin Peaks right now. And, seeing the ages of the people who are posting this. It's like, I'm in my 30s, I think we're all around the same age. So, we were super young and should not have been watching the show when it originally came out, but we did. But, there's people younger than us who are as captivated, if not more, to the mythology. And it's just really great to see, and I cannot wait to see just what happens. And I think I've said that like 20,000 times, but
it bears repeating
It's so
because I
true.
think it's so true. Yeah.
exactly. And like I said, it's just I hope the next 18 hours just answer enough questions and has a proper ending, but leaves the door open for more. That's really all I want out of this.
Yeah.
Well,
I think we're gonna get it.
and I wanna know who
I
Laura
don't think that
Dorn
David
is
Lynch is
playing.
gonna let us down.
Yeah. But yeah, no, and I don't think he'll let us down. If anything, he will tear us apart because we want more by the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 1 week away, Twin Peaks season 3 on Showtime in the USA, Crave TV, TMN here in Canada, and like I mentioned, I'll be adding show notes with links to where you can watch it in your country. Lindsay, Aiden, any final words?
I think you said it. I mean, we're a week away. We're super excited. Can't wait for this to come back.
Yeah, that's it. We all, for the last 3 months, we've just been like, don't get hit by a car today. We cannot die before we see the new Twin Peaks. So that's our motto.
Yeah, just we gotta make it.
I never even thought of that.
Oh no!
I have to go to my mom's after this. I'm going to be
Oh my
like...
gosh. Okay, well, just look 4 times before you cross the street, and
exactly.
you'll be fine.
Exactly. Oh, no. Well, thank you guys so much, Aiden, Lindsay from the Bickering Peaks podcast. Where can we find you guys?
We are on Facebook and on Twitter at Bickering Peaks. Facebook, you can just look us up under Bickering Peaks as well. And our podcast is posted on SoundCloud, so you can search for us there as well.
Excellent. Be sure to listen to that podcast. It is a fantastic, it's a damn fine podcast, if I say so myself.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So thanks again for joining us, and I hope you had as much fun talking about Twin Peaks as me. And let's see what season 3 brings. And I'm hoping to do a recap episode by the end. Ooh. So hopefully you can come back and we can cry or laugh or just be one with the universe.
I think we can definitely do that. Yes. we'll be there for that. Absolutely. Thanks for having us as well. We had so much fun. This is great.
Thank you. And that was our conversation with Aiden and Lindsay from the Bickering Peaks podcast. It was so much fun being able to chat Twin Peaks with such huge fans. Again, Tyler, I know you're just watching it for the first time. You don't have that obsession the way that we do.
It hasn't passed into nostalgia yet.
Exactly. And you know what? I'm happy that you gave it the chance. I actually didn't tell you one thing that I tell all of my friends that I get into Twin Peaks, and that's you have to watch until episode 3, the dream sequence. If you cannot further watch it, that's cool. You gave it a good chance, but most people get hooked by that point.
Oh, I'm hooked. I'm gonna finish it.
Oh no,
I know.
I know. I'm just saying that it was one of those things that I on purposely didn't tell you this, just because I really wanted to get your full and honest opinion on the show and whatnot. And it's such a good show overall, and considering how cheesy it is at times, going back to how it was the 90s, and it was the first show of its kind in terms of serial drama, but it was more than just a serial drama. It was serial drama and a comedy at times, and a suspense, and a crime thriller, and it was just so many things all jumbled up into one. It's been able to really withstand the time. It's not too dated, and that's one thing I really do appreciate about what David Lynch created with that 50s, 80s motif, where you don't know where in time the show is, and I think that's one thing that's really helped with the aging process of the show.
I didn't even notice how it's atemporal. I mean, it starts to become a little bit more obviously temporal now.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because technology has changed so much.
Yep.
But it could fit really anywhere between the 50s and 80s.
Exactly. And I think that
even the mid-90s.
Yeah, and I think that was the beauty part about that show was, and I think that's why it's been able to, you can watch it at any point in time, and it seems okay because this is David Lynch's world, and this is the way that these people live. Like, they're stuck in this 50s, 80s world, and you can't get them out of there. And it's just really cool how he was able to really get that. And I think, for me personally, that's one of the main reasons why it's lasted so long and it doesn't feel so dated. So it'll be very interesting to sort of see how this new season is in terms of where in time it is. Like, obviously, it's 26 years later, 25 years in the show. So yeah, it'll just be very interesting to sort of see how they integrate that time paradox into the show for this new season. Will they have cell phones? Will they have computers? Will they, we'll see.
Yep.
Totally. We'll see. So,
and what's going to have happened to these characters in the last 25 years?
Exactly. Oh, exactly. That's exactly it.
Yes.
So many questions, and I wish that I had more answers, but really, I hope people are as hyped, as ready, as, whatever, as I am, because I am so excited for the new season of Twin Peaks, and yeah, it's going to be really, really fun. So I think we've reached the conclusion of this episode, Tyler.
I think you're right.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's been so much fun. I am so happy that we are back. I cannot thank our listeners enough. You know, if you've been listening to the show since day one or day two, I can't thank you enough for really being the reason why we're coming back for season 3. If you are new to the show, I hope that you were entertained enough to keep listening to us, to keep subscribing to the show. We are trying to keep the show weekly, at the very least. At least for now. We'll see how it goes. But this is basically the new format of the show, where we will be talking about everything under the sun. Next week, we will be talking about Guardians of the Galaxy. So that's going to be a ton of fun. So just remember that you can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on everything, really. And we are the It's Canon podcast. If you have been following Comics I Read, you should already be following It's Canon podcast. And for those of you that are new, be sure to follow us. The podcast itself, you can find us on iTunes. You can find us on Google Play Music. You can find us on Stitcher. You can find us on a bunch of other networks. Basically, if you need to find a podcast, if you can find a podcast, you can find the It's Canon podcast. And the best part about it is that it's all in canon.
Yeah!
Yeah. So, as always, thank you so much. And good night.